on 95.7. The Game.
Oh, baby! The 49ers back in the winning side of things, and an NFC West rival is doing them a major favor. There's 32 seconds left in Philadelphia, and the 3-12 Arizona Cardinals have a 35-31 lead. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles just got the ball back. They need to go 75 yards in 30 seconds with no timeouts if they want a chance at the number 1 seed. Welcome into overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you. Sterling, first of all, the 49ers picked up a win today over the Washington Commanders. That's, box checked number 1.
Right.
Number 2, the Cardinals doing the Niners a gigantic favor if that score holds, and we'll have an update, a final score for you coming up in just a minute or two. But if that holds, Sterling, the 49ers will be the number 1 seed in the NFC no matter what happens in Week 18.
What a way. If both these scores go final, in which they are now, San Francisco winning 27-10, check. Philadelphia down 35-31. What a way to end 2023 for the San Francisco 49ers.
Happy New Year's Eve, everybody.
Imagine last week you lose on Christmas, how awful it was. We all felt like, what's going on? The world's falling, and it feels like the season might be over. Oh, my goodness. All of a sudden, just 6 days later, you might have the number 1 seed clinched because the Arizona Cardinals, who beat the Dallas Cowboys earlier this year, might just knock off the Philadelphia Eagles today. Now, it's close. They got 14 seconds left. Philadelphia is marching.
They're just near midfield. Yeah.
But they can't get a field goal. It's got to be a touchdown. They have to get in the end zone. Philadelphia is a good team. They can easily get this done. But as of right now, I might need to go back in that kitchen and find some more Martinellis and start popping some champagne in the studio because I'm feeling the number 1 seed clinched is going to happen in 14 seconds.
Well, your loaf of bread from Christmas is still sitting right outside your door right now.
I come back a week later and I'm like, no one ate the bread? I might have to eat the rest today if this number 1 seed gets clinched.
You might have to. So 14 seconds left in Philadelphia. The Eagles taking a snap from just shy of midfield right now. They have maybe time for a play or two and then a heave to the end zone. Their most recent play is an incomplete pass. They're complaining for a flag. They don't get it. So 7 seconds left, Sterling, from their own 49. They're 1 yard shy of midfield. You might have time for one quick play to maybe get to the 45, just get a few yards and make the Hail Mary a little bit easier. But you might go for a Hail Mary right here. This could be the final play of the game. We'll keep you updated. Of course, it'll happen within the next minute, and you will know the second that this game is final, if it is a Cardinals win, which would mean the 49ers are the number 1 seed in the NFC, which means a really tough test next week against the Rams will not matter, and the Eagles are going Hail Mary here with 7 seconds left.
Here it is.
Hurts into the end zone.
Number 1 seed, baby.
Intercepted.
San Francisco, number 1 seed. Didn't even need to take it to Week 18 against the Rams.
Official.
That game means nothing against the Rams next week.
The number 1 seed in the 2024 playoffs the NFC, your San Francisco 49ers.
Woo! Handshakes, claps, champagne. Happy New Year. San Francisco, the number 1 seed in the NFC, gets the first round bye, doesn't have to play one of those stinkers, the Saints, the Commanders, those really awful bad teams that are going to squeak in. Dallas Cowboys, they're going to have to come to us. Philadelphia, if we play them, they're going to have to come to us. The Lions, they're going to have to come to Levi Stadium if they want to get to the Super Bowl. How great does that feel?
And honestly, more important, I think, than the home field advantage, this is a banged-up team right now. And not only do you have the wild card week off, but you can take next week off if you really want it. I mean, you can rest Christian McCaffrey, who did not play like in the entire second half of this game nearly, dealing with a right calf thing. It didn't seem major at all. Plus, Elijah Mitchell was running really well, and you didn't feel the need to risk it. You were up by double digits, so why push Christian McCaffrey when you don't have to? But Sterling, I've long felt that more important, obviously, home field advantage is nice, and not having to travel, not having to leave Pacific Standard Time, not having to leave the time zone out here. You get to sleep in your own beds. The entire postseason lead up. The Super Bowl is in Vegas. That's close to you as well. I know I'm getting a little bit ahead of myself, but I think, honestly, more important than the home field, I mean, this is a Niner team and a Niner fan base that travels as good as any. I think, especially considering how banged up the team is right now, and we had no clue what the offensive line was going to look like today.
Aaron Banks today. Feliciano and Burford got the start.
Yeah, Banks was active but did not play. On the defensive line, you're still without Armstead with plantar fasciitis.
No Jair Brown.
Don't need to play him next week. Obviously, you have the bye the first week of the postseason. You're right. No Jair Brown. Logan Ryan got his first start and his first real legitimate Niners action since being signed recently. The Niners really needed the bye, and now they're going to get it. And if they want to, they could treat next week as somewhat of a bye as well. Now then you get into the question of, rest versus rest, right?
How much rest is too much rest?
It's in the Niners' hands. They can deal with next week however they want to, knowing that they do not have to push themselves to win that football game.
I know they played today, but wouldn't it feel better if you could knock the Rams down a peg too? Dare I say, I think starters might play a half, or selective starters should play a half. Brock Purdy should play a half. But Trent Williams, he ain't playing.
No.
McCaffrey's not playing. Devo's not playing.
Yeah.
Ayuk might not play. Your hope is that you get Juwan Jennings back. You have Chris Conley and Ronnie Bell. Maybe McLeod's back. Or even, dare I say, you see Danny Gray for the first time all year.
He was supposed to get activated today, didn't he? But he didn't.
Yeah, his window got closed real quick. But if you're San Francisco and I'm Kyle Shanahan, I have one thing on my mind. I want to knock the Rams down a peg, knock McVay down a peg, make them play a different seed. And again, who knows how this week plays out.
They might need to win to get in.
Right. Or at least it'll help their seeding, depending on how things play out. But if I'm Shanahan, I'm I want to release Sam Darnold on the Rams next week. Red Rifle Jr., the man who nearly fumbled this game or fumbled late in this game. I want to make the Rams lose to Sam Darnold. That is the ultimate humiliation for a team. Brock Purdy's great and all, could be an MVP, who knows? But the Rams are only up by 1 point against the Giants right now.
2-minute warning right now.
With 2 minutes left.
Quarter.
If they lose today, then they lose against the Niners next week. Their playoff seeding, their opponent could look a lot different. If you get them out of the playoffs, that's a win-win for San Francisco.
You could try to set it up however you want. If you feel like the Rams have a chance to beat the Eagles, you want the Rams to be the 7 seed. Well, that could influence how you do it. If you want them to play the Lions, that would mean the Rams would be the 6 seed. That would be a really fun matchup. Rams and Lions, former quarterbacks of each other, facing off against each other. But that's all for coming up this week and leading into next week. That conversation
Let
here.
Sam Darnold jacket.
What about Brandon Allen?
All right, you're too far.
All right, you're listening to 95.7 The Game, KGMZ FM and HD1 San Francisco, always live on the free Odyssey app, Twitch, and YouTube. If you're just joining us, first of all, you missed a few minutes. The Niners beat the Commanders and the Cardinals beat the Eagles. So the 49ers are the number 1 seed in the NFC officially. It's overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you. We'll be with you here for the next 3 hours reacting to everything from Week 17, but of course with the focus on the San Francisco 49ers. And Sterling, this was a game the 49ers absolutely had to have, even if the Eagles did lose like they did today. The Niners still needed to win today, and they bounced back off one of, if not their worst performance of the season from Christmas night when they lost to the Ravens in kind of embarrassing fashion. You committed 5 turnovers. You did not force a turnover of your own. The Niners come back today. They play a very clean game. They did not turn the ball over. They had 2 interceptions defensively of Sam Howell, who got the start despite being benched each of the last 2 weeks because Jacoby Brissett is out with a hamstring injury. Just good to see the 49ers bounce back, Sterling, and play a clean football game after a really ugly one on Monday night.
Well, Purdy throws 4 picks on Christmas. Darnold has one of his own and gets 5. And you're sitting there, and I'm watching the first half, and The offense looks sluggish, albeit they're winning the game. The defense has no energy, and it felt like it was not going to be a carryover from that Christmas Day loss, but there was just a lack of energy. I'm not sure if it was no Eric Armstead, no Juwan Jennings, no Jair Brown. There just wasn't that spark you usually see from this team.
That Juwan injury is a little concerning.
Concussion, out 2 weeks in a row.
Doesn't normally last that long. I mean, I know concussions are serious, but a lot of times players come back the week after it happens. He's missed 2 weeks now.
Thankfully, they have the bye week
They don't
now.
need him for another 2 weeks.
He cannot play for a whole month, and I'll say, that's fine. Whatever. Who cares? But knowing how bad you lost against the Ravens on Christmas Day, knowing how sluggish you played in the first half, despite being in the red zone once and not scoring a touchdown, how poorly the Commanders played in this game, I think, like, you're just waiting for the bow to break for the Washington Commanders. Like, when is Howell going to throw picks? When are they going to have turnovers? They stayed in the game for a large portion of it, but for San Francisco, Purdy only had 230 passing yards, only had 2 passing touchdowns, but this game felt like there was a chasm in between both teams, despite it being really close up into halftime.
You want to know what this game felt like to me for the 49ers offensively? And I really do not mean this as a negative. It felt like a Jimmy Garoppolo era offensive performance.
Yeah.
Like there wasn't as many gigantic chunk plays.
Until late in the game.
And it happened later with a couple of Ayuk, and we can get to Purdy.
If you're going to say Ayuk,
incredible throws.
Ayuk.
He was really good today. Purdy found him on a couple of dazzling plays on that last touchdown drive that put the game out of reach. But early, it was run heavy. It was methodical. It was checkdowns. It was slow moving. It was long drives. I mean, there was the 12-play drive that went for a touchdown. They took like 7 minutes and 15 seconds off the clock. Again, I don't mean that in any sort of negative way. Jimmy Garoppolo was very good at that style of this Niners offense.
Very conservative.
It did. But it also was effective, and it worked, and you controlled the clock, and you controlled the game for the most part. Now, you settled for some field goals, which also felt like the Jimmy Garoppolo era. You weren't as successful in the red zone. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, you can see Sterling going crazy right now. The New York Giants have gotten into deep field goal range with 45 seconds left against the Rams. They're down by 1. So that could be a big win for the Giants and a really tough loss for the Rams. We'll keep you updated there. But this did feel like a Jimmy Garoppolo era game.
It really did.
And the Niners were largely successful with Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, I don't mean it in a bad way.
It's playing winnable football.
Yeah, it really is. And I think it shows that this is a Niners offense still that can play different styles and can beat you kind of whatever way that the game unfolds. And today it just happened to be a slower, more grinded out kind of style. And the Niners are fine that way.
Is it wrong of me to question that maybe Kyle Shanahan saw what happened on Christmas and said, let's pull back the reins a little bit?
Maybe.
Not, don't go full, Jimmy G in the playoffs in 2019 where it's like, Raheem, run the ball 40 times. Not that way, but it did feel like coming into this one, it was like, look, Purdy, you just threw 4 picks. You're a young quarterback still. I don't need to protect you. I'm still going to take those shots here or there, but I'm not going to, come out throwing the ball 5 times, 10 times in a row and say, lead us to victory. I have guys that can do that for us. Even though Purdy is still, I think, having a phenomenal season, he's going to be in the MVP conversation even after his Christmas Day blunders. But today felt more of like, let's pull those reins back a tad, and late in the game, after we worn them down, let's take our shots. Like, we saw a 38-yard dime.
Oh, my God.
Or if you want to call it a dot, as Williams said when Purdy did it a couple weeks ago, and I'm not talking DOT, I'm talking DAHD. It was a dot right to Brandon Ayuk. And then later in that same drive, they score a touchdown pass. Purdy's out there going to his left, going to his right, telling Ayuk, no, go that way, go to your left, finding him wide open. Like, you can see the gunslinger still in there, but the reins were certainly drawn back for Purdy in this one, which it felt like a Shanahan game plan type of day.
Yeah, I want to focus on those 2 plays at the end, though. That touchdown drive that put it, I think it made it 27-10. It was the final score of the game. So the 49ers, 1st and 10, Brandon Ayuk just runs a simple route. He comes from the slot, cuts out to the right, almost kind of like a wheel, but since it came from the slot, wasn't a full wheel, ends up running down the right sideline. Really quickly, though, we do have an update from New York.
What the heck? back.
They didn't get any more yards after Tyrod Taylor got into field goal range. They had a long, 54-yard field goal attempt?
Mason Crosby.
Mason Crosby.
Why is he in the
Packers
league?
Legend. What is he, 50 years old?
He's on the Rams
now?
2 weeks ago and couldn't make the team. Oh, my goodness.
Anyways, they missed the field goal short and wide to the left. So the ball goes back to the Rams with 30 seconds left. The Rams are up by 1.
This game should have been tied. They went for 2 earlier and didn't get it.
So unless there's some more madness, the Rams will escape the Meadowlands with a win, which means their playoff positioning takes a major step forward. If there's anything crazy that happens in those final 30 seconds, we'll let you know. But
New York stinks, man.
Niner fans, doesn't really matter that much. You're the 1 seed in the NFC. All is good in the world as Matt Stafford takes one knee, and in the final 25 seconds will tick off. So the Rams win. They're now 9-7 as they barely escape the New York Giants in New Jersey, technically. But back to Brock Purdy. Those 2 throws he made on that last scoring drive, it was 1st and 10. I like the aggressiveness because you're right, the Niners were a little bit more conservative, well, a lot bit more conservative in this one. But 1st and 10, Ayuk, kind of like a wheel route, gets to the sideline quickly and then just runs straight down the sideline. Didn't really have much separation from Forbes. Really, they were step for step. There was not a lot of room to fit that ball in.
Pretty sure it touched Forbes' hands.
It might have, yeah. And Brock Purdy absolutely perfectly placed. He could not have walked up to him and dropped it in a better spot on the money. Wow. Picture perfect throw. It goes for 38 yards all the way down to the 18-yard line. Later on, there was a hold on Ronnie Bell. Seemed kind of like a phantom hold, but it took off a nice Deebo Samuel short catch and run all the way down to the 3-yard line, backs the Niners up. Ultimately, they face a 3rd and 9 from the 17-yard line. Purdy pressured, somehow escapes the pressure, does kind of like a step in to the pocket, and then spins and moves out.
Gave him a shimmy.
And broke the ankles of a pass rusher.
Electric slide.
Rolls out to the right. As he's rolling right, there's like no one in front of him, so he has time to set his feet. And what he also does is point to Ayuk and say, get the hell over there, Brandon. Go to the left. Everyone else is running to the right. You got space left. I'm telling you where to go. And then he makes an easy throw as he sets his feet, throws back across his body, wide open Ayuk for the touchdown. 27-10, ball game over. 2 consecutive throws by Brock Purdy that were absolutely picture perfect. And if anyone out there, any Niners fan that doesn't believe in Brock, any football fan that doesn't believe in Brock, they come up to you, Niner fan, and they say Brock is just a game manager, he's just a system quarterback, Sterling, you point to those 2 plays right there. There are very few quarterbacks in the NFL that can make both of those plays, and Brock Purdy did it on 1 drive.
We know what's going to happen, too, is that there's going to be part of the media, part of certain fan bases that will say, oh, they didn't have 2 starting cornerbacks, they didn't have their offensive line, and they're going to try to poke holes in this. But the fact of the matter is that cornerback, Emmanuel Forbes, Washington's 1st-round pick this year, cornerback from Maryland, I believe, he's right on Ayuk. He's glued to him, and Purdy still fits it in. It doesn't matter who the cornerback is, who is or not on the field. The coverage was great.
Honestly, might have been Brock Purdy's best throw of the season. And there's a lot to choose from.
And it feels like every time he makes a throw like that, it's like, well, that was the best, and that was the best, and that was the best, because he's made so many good throws in so little time as a starter that you cannot help but say, wow, at least for 1 season, top 3 quarterback in the entire league. He's outplaying elite players. We said it over and over and over again. He is, at this very moment, the single season passing yard leader in San Francisco 49ers history through 17 games, not 18 games.
Yeah, so this is like an official record. There's no asterisk on it.
Exactly. 4,280 yards over Jeff Garcia, over Joe Montana, and over Steve Young. Like, he's putting together.
Think about that.
One of the greatest seasons for a 49ers quarterback ever.
This is such a storied organization with Hall of Fame quarterbacks, and the guy who has the most passing yards in a single season in franchise history is Brock Purdy. Now, I know part of that is just the game today. Sure. It's way more pass heavy, but still, more passing yards in a single season than Steve Young, Joe Montana, and Jeff Garcia, who did hold the record. That's nothing to scoff at. That is a phenomenal mark for Brock Purdy.
You can even take it further and say every time he didn't play a fourth quarter, every time he didn't play the last 8 minutes of a fourth quarter.
This is what, like the 7th or 8th game Darnold's played today or this
Sammy
season?
D, you got the Gerback rule. Just go out there and take a few knees and sit down and shut up. It's the best role to have. Like, I do wonder that, is there an incentive marker Darnold's going to hit by just taking knees and not actually playing games?
In terms of games played?
I feel like he has to, right?
I could try to
There's got to
figure
be
it out.
like a per-play bonus somewhere because he's going to get it. And it's mainly because Brock Purdy's having an MVP caliber season. But going back to those two passes, like, it's 20-10. Your offense really hasn't found momentum. Like they scored 20 points, but it's been kind of a hit or miss kind of day, kind of vanilla offense. You ain't gotten much happening for your offense. And the Commanders, they throw a pick. I get it. But they march, 95 yards downfield on that drive to put this one away, put the Commanders on their heels, and put this one out to pasture. And then 5 minutes later, we're sitting here saying, #1 seed, baby, it's Clinch. Like, Purdy didn't clinch #1 seed, but beating Philadelphia early this year.
Beating Dallas.
The Cardinals beating Dallas. The Cardinals beating Philadelphia. Like,
Cardinals have 4 wins, and 2 of them are against.
The Cardinals deserve the #1 seed as much as San Francisco does because they've had a big as role as anybody else has. Because my goodness, Kyler Murray and Josh Dobbs. Thank you so much.
Great work, great work, guys.
You have made our season not a piece of cake, but we can sit back, relax, pop a little champagne, a little bubbly, and just sit back and go, a bye week in January sounds phenomenal.
Yeah. So I have Sam Darnold's incentives.
Uh-oh, where are they?
I don't think he's making money just from these knees. So each game he plays 25% of the snaps and the Niners win, he gets $300,000. I don't think any of these, garbage time cleanup mop acts have been 25% or more of the snaps. Maybe a couple have been close. If you play like the entire fourth quarter, but I don't think he's got anything there.
Probably the Cowboys game might get him there.
Maybe. So maybe he has an extra 300,000 or maybe 600,000 as a result. But also, if he plays 50% of the season snaps, and the Niners make the playoffs, he gets $1 million. That's not going to happen. Each playoff game he plays 50% of the snaps, he gets 100,000.
Well, he might play and start next week, so who knows?
It's not a playoff game, though. But, so next week, he might get an extra 300,000 if he plays 25% of the snaps and the Niners beat the Rams.
I don't think I've made $300,000 in my 27 years of living.
Yeah.
And if I can just take 7 sacks and be like, oh, yeah, I'll make $300,000. Great. Sign me up, Kyle. I'll be your Brandon Allen. I'll be your whipping boy if I can make $300,000 a year.
Getting hit by Aaron Donald is worth $300,000.
I can lose a femur.
You can survive it.
I don't need my legs. Who needs to breathe for a month?
3 hours of hell. Hey,
just break all my ribs for $300,000. It wouldn't even need to be on the football field. You can take me in the back alley and say, all right, Sterling, we're going to break your ribs. $300,000, I'll say, yes, please. Yes, sir. Whatever you want.
Yeah, it's good work if you could get it, right?
I mean, honestly, could you imagine
$300,000? Yeah, he might be in line for that, in addition to his normal game check.
Man.
But
how incredible has this season been? Like, coming into this week, last night, me and you were here together watching the Warrior game, working the Warrior game, and I'm sitting there and I'm screaming the entire time, being like, come on, Dallas, you got to pull this one out for us. And I'm sitting there, and you watch the 3 2-point conversions back to back to back. Had that not happened, had Dan Campbell not had the cojones to want to bite someone's kneecaps off, and had the Cardinals not come out to play today, well, we're sitting here like, we got to play week 8, number 10. Like, everything had to go right for San Francisco. And on a day where the offense wasn't perfect, it wasn't a, go out there and crush them kind of day. Like, they got stopped. And this game could have been 34-10, and they couldn't get in the end zone. They still clinched #1 seed. Like, everything went right. And to cap off 2023 this way, it may be one of the best years in San Francisco 49er history.
Yeah. No, I mean, they're going to finish the regular season with at least 12 wins. They will be the #1 seed in the NFC. They'll have a bye to begin, and they'll be watching the playoffs from home. They won't have to leave the Pacific, the West Coast time zone, PST, and the NFC playoffs run through Santa Clara. If someone other than the 49ers will go to the Super Bowl, Sterling, the Niners will have to lose in Santa Clara. They'll have to lose in Santa Clara, which, when's the last time the 49ers lost a home playoff game? Off the top of my head, I guess it was the New York Giants. the first
Dude,
year.
Why
that
you
they
gotta
made the
bring it
playoffs,
up,
right?
man?
I'm thinking off the top of my head. I didn't know the answer when I first asked it.
You
but
said,
then I thought through
Kyle
it.
Williams. Oh, great.
Yeah, Kyle Williams is the last time, right? That's the last time.
I think so.
And when was that? Like 2010? Was it the 2011
I buried that
postseason?
memory so far in my brain. It haunts me. It gives me night sweats, night terrors.
The point is,
It's
the
like Freddy
Niners,
Krueger to me.
the Niners in the Kyle Shanahan era have not lost a home playoff game. Like, they are exactly where they want to be. Now, history doesn't really mean anything in the present, but the 49ers have been an incredibly successful postseason team at home under Kyle Shanahan, and now all they have to do is win 2 home playoff games to get to the Super Bowl.
And it's not like they have to travel too far. And you go to Vegas, it's near Arizona, Brock Purdy's home. Like, it's going to feel like a home game in Vegas. You think if they get that far, that Vegas is not going to be just a wall of red? It's going to be awesome. Now, again, you got to be whoever you're going to play. They're probably going to have to play somebody like Philadelphia. Like, imagine that rematch. Just 1 year ago at the link, Purdy tears the UCL. We're starting right at the end of this whole story. You go to the link this year, you shove you-know-what in their face, make them come here and say, try to beat us with no Dom DeSandro. Good luck, my friends. Good luck, my friends. It's not going to happen. Like, and then you have to play the Dallas Cowboys, who cannot win on the road. Like, they are awful on the road. The Rams are the Rams. Who knows? Like, it just feels like with this caliber team, they shouldn't lose against the Rams week 18, depending on who's starting. They really shouldn't lose another game in the playoffs outside of the Super Bowl. Like, that's the only game that truly I'm like, I don't know about that one, because the NFC has kind of been San Francisco's whipping boy this year. They've swept the NFC East.
One loss in the NFC. And it's to the Vikings.
And they could sweep the NFC West again if they beat the Rams in Week 18. Like, the NFC truly, like, San Francisco has utterly dominated them. My only concern is, are you playing the Ravens again? Are you playing the Browns and Joe Flacco? Because if you do, I'm getting flashbacks again to the Harbaugh Bowl. Like, there really aren't too many teams that scare me in the NFC now. You have to play and you have to take care of business, but the NFC has just been kind of a cakewalk for San Francisco this year.
I mean, it has been. The best teams in the NFC, the 49ers have put up 42 points on them. 42-10 against the Cowboys. 42-19 against the Eagles.
Man.
And the Eagles, you were in Philadelphia, as you said.
Bunch of frauds. I can't call the Commanders that today because they already stink. They have 4 wins. Who? I can't call them a fraud. But I can call the Cowboys frauds. I almost called
They did the Niners a huge favor last night.
Every blind squirrel finds a nut one day.
Rare, but Niner fans were Cowboy fans last night.
We were all gurus last night.
Yeah, I think Guru was honestly upset that the Cowboys won that game the way that they won it.
I mean, hey, sometimes you gotta be like, you have to be lucky. You have to be lucky. But man, the fact that likely 3 NFC West teams are going to go to the playoffs, though, it kind of makes me happy because I know we can beat them. Like Seattle, the Rams, Philadelphia, whatever, Baker Mayfield, like all those teams in the picture, just like, whatever, cool, happy you made it, good luck.
Congrats.
Like, you're not going to win, sorry.
No, yeah, I mean, I'm honest. I think I'm a little more fearful of the Rams than you are. I am absolutely not worried about the Seattle Seahawks at all. I think the Rams could very well pull an upset if they're the 6 or the 7 against the 2 or the 3 seed. We will see. That's down the road. I think it's important for the 49ers that they got back off the schneid here today. They beat the Commanders 27-10. Obviously, they needed to win to bounce back after Monday. 5 turnovers on Christmas against the Ravens. The Ravens, by the way, absolutely dominated today. They put up, 56? Was it 56 on the Dolphins? And they are officially the 1 seed.
Lamar had 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, he's going to win the MVP. He does not need to play in Week 18 either. 56-19 was the final score. The Ravens are officially the number 1 seed in the AFC as well. So Ravens, Niners, the 2 1 seeds here as we head towards the 2024 postseason. But Sterling, for the 49ers, it was kind of like a workman-like day. Christian McCaffrey was busy early, left with a right calf issue. It was getting taped up on the sideline in the second half.
Didn't he hurt his calf last year, too? Late in the year?
I think it was bothering him a little bit. It didn't cost him a game.
No, but I think it was a calf injury last year as well.
But Elijah Mitchell came back and looked
this man
looked like looked like 2021 Elijah Mitchell. He had 17 carries, 80 yards, and a touchdown, his first touchdown of the season. I mean, it's not anywhere near McCaffrey level of putting fear into opponents, and he's not catching passes like McCaffrey does. But the Niners did not really miss that much in the run game. Elijah was good.
I do wonder, for San Francisco, had McLeod been healthy, would that have been Mason? Would that have been Mitchell? Like, Mason was doing kick returns today. And I get his value for this team might be much more on special teams, which it has been the past couple years. But Mitchell was really solid. And if you can get that 1-2 punch back, you can kind of get the mix and match with CMC, who's going to have 20-plus carries a game, going to catch 5 passes a game. Then you have Mitchell, change of pace guy that can just give you a different look for defense. Like, if that's a new layer of the offense and you're hitting it before the playoffs, like that's perfect timing for San Francisco. And in the game where McCaffrey's injured, you don't want to hurt him any further, Mitchell steps up big time for them. And I don't think if this is his best game of the year. Best game since, 2021, right? Like, this really was Mitchell's coming out party at 2023. And in a game like this, this may have been the most important time for him to step up for San Francisco. And
he's going to get a lot of opportunities next week, you would imagine. That's well, right?
Where he had his worst game ever in the playoffs against the Rams. So, hey, Elijah, now you can make up for it in Week 18.
No, just like you forgot about that NFC Championship game against the Rams, I have put that NFC Championship, or the NFC Championship.
He averaged 1 yard a carry. 1 yard. It's like, Elijah, come on.
The only thing I remember about that NFC Championship game was Jaquiski Tartt dropping the interception.
You don't remember Jimmy Garoppolo? JaMychal Hasty here. And it was like, all right.
Well, yeah, but the game was all right. It was over.
Aaron Donald putting the finger up with the ring.
Now that you mentioned it, I do remember it. I'm not glad that I brought it up because it's...
Hey, you brought up Kyle Williams.
Not purposefully. I kind of stumbled into it.
Unlike today, it felt like every Niner fan had collective outrage saying, just move out the way. Just move, run.
Oh, yeah. I mean, you see what Ronnie Bell did on that punt return today?
He actually wasn't that bad.
Okay, but that was a scary, weird moment.
Yeah.
So there's a punt. Ronnie Bell's back to return. I think he's maybe got his feet planted around the 15-yard line, something like that. And the punt is a little bit shorter than he's expecting. So he tries to, I think his thought process was, I'm going to run up and try to catch it.
Yeah.
But maybe he couldn't get there in time, and he kind of at the last second bailed out of the way. But he cut it so close that it nearly hit him as the ball was landing. It looked like he could have probably caught it, but instead of just getting out of the way, like running backwards, running to the side, he ran at the ball, and it nearly hit him. It was maybe the scariest moment of the day for the 49ers. Now, it didn't end up hurting them at all. But my heart skipped a beat there for a moment when Ronnie Bell almost muffed the punt just by running into it.
I don't want him back there ever again. Like, it feels like every time there's a punt, I'm holding my breath like, please catch it. Please catch it. Whereas McLeod's back there, he'll get the fair catch. He's not going to fumble. Or Bell, almost every game, it's like, oh, he almost fumbled here. He did fumble here. Oh, he almost did it again. And you're like, Ronnie, like, fair catch? Catch the ball and just call it a day. Your offense is so good, they can march 90 yards for you. Just play it safe, my friend. It's a punt. They're giving you the ball back. You don't have to make a play.
Yeah, it'll be okay. It'll be okay.
Just catch the ball.
You'll be fine. You'll be fine. Yeah. Man. I mean, he did have one decent return today. And I remember, but that moment was a scary one. But lots to be happy about if you're a 49er fan today. First of all, they knock off the Commanders. Final score 27-10. Brock Purdy and the offense bounce back. The defense, a couple of bad drives where the Commanders got some big plays against you, but ultimately you hold the Commanders to only 10 points. They do not score in the entire second half. You get a win. The Cardinals do you a major favor. They beat the Eagles. The 49ers are officially the number 1 seed in the NFC. It does not matter what happens next week in regard to that. The Niners have clinched it. All right, time for a break here on Overtime. Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you. We got a lot more to get into, and we want to hear from you. Give us a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line. Overtime continues coming up next right here on 95.7 The Game.
If you have a dog, you might be worried about your good boy being bad for your carpet. But if you had Life-Proof with Pet-Proof Technology carpet, you wouldn't have to worry, even if you had a whole pack of dogs.
keep the play alive and find his top target, Brandon Ayuk, for the score.
Now back to overtime with Sterling Bennett and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
That was Adam Amin you just heard on Fox calling that the Brock Purdy 2 Brandon Ayuk touchdown. That was the Niners' final score of the game. It was from 17 yards out. Put the Niners on top 27-10. That would be the final score. That was a 10-play, 95-yard drive. The Niners also had a 12-play, 83-yard drive. They had a 12-play, 55-yard drive. They had a 9-play, 63-yard drive. They were a little methodical today. They managed to kill a bunch of clock. They dominated time of possession, 38 minutes to 22 minutes today, and it was an all-around good performance for the San Francisco 49ers. Welcome back to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy and Sterling Bennett with you. That score, though, not the only positive result for the 49ers. The Arizona Cardinals knocked off the Philadelphia Eagles in Philadelphia 35-31, and as a result, the 49ers have clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Yeah, buddy!
And Sterling, you and I were talking about this during the break. There is video on Twitter of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, and George Kittle. Later, Fred Warner comes over with a shocked look on his face. They're all huddled around Mike Silver of the Chronicle, who has the Eagles game up on his phone.
That's awesome.
And they're all watching. Obviously, it's as the Cardinals are driving down, about to get into the end zone. And you can hear Deebo and Ayuk and Kittle all screaming, "Come on, Kyler. Let's go, Kyler. Come on, Kyler." And they get into the end zone. They all run off celebrating. Fred Warner comes over "Oh my God, what just happened? Did they actually just lose?" It wasn't official at that point, but they took the lead with 30 seconds left. Just a fun scene to see those guys, some of the key core players on this 49er team, celebrating an Eagles loss after the game.
Well, we saw how much that number 1 seed meant to San Francisco when they got the bye week, where they had, 10 days off prior to playing Philadelphia in Philadelphia this year. We also know how important it's been for their playoff luck. Go back to 2019. You only got to win 2 playoff games, and you're in the Super Bowl. For them this year, it's not just about get a bye week, you're at home, but you get healthy again. And for this team, they've shown what they can do when they have 10 days off. Now give them 2 weeks to get ready, prepare for an opponent, no matter who it is, whether it's Philadelphia again or the Cowboys or whoever it might be, the Lions, who knows, right? This team can put up 42 against an opponent when they have 10 days off.
Well, yeah, so coming off of long rest, right? I guess technically they played Thursday week 3. That was against the Giants.
Yeah.
And then they bounced back. Was that Arizona week 4? They were fine that game, but it wasn't an incredibly dominant one.
That was McCaffrey 4-touchdown game, right?
You're right. Yeah, but okay, then after the bye came after the 3-game losing streak, and they dominated one of the better teams in the AFC in Jacksonville. And then the one you're talking about, after the Thursday night game on Thanksgiving in Seattle, they have the 10 days off, kind of the mini bye, and then they score 42 points against the Eagles. So, you're right. A pretty good track record of success coming off of extended rest.
And now it's guaranteed. And even if you lose in week 18 now, there's no pressure. Yes, you want to beat the Rams. Yes, you want to push them down a peg and maybe have Seattle overtake them, depending on a tiebreaker. I have no idea how it works right now currently, but you don't have to win next week. There's no pressure. And if you lose, who cares? Yes, you want to win, but it doesn't matter. The fact that all the pressure was going to be on the final game of the season, it's Niners against the Rams, Shanahan, McVay at Levi Stadium. Whoever wins gets the number 1 seed, or the Rams get they're clinching the 6th seed, whatever it is for them. Now it's
whatever.
Whatever happens, cool.
Yeah.
Win or loss, we're still number 1 seed. Doesn't matter.
And you can thank the Arizona Cardinals for that. Kyle Shanahan postgame was asked if he got a chance to watch the end of that game like some of his players did. Here's the Niners head coach after the win in D.C.
Yes, that's why we're laid in here. It was awesome. Didn't want to really try to not pay attention to it. Didn't want to get our hearts broke, but we did right there at the end, and they pulled it out. It was pretty cool to see.
That's awesome.
Such a vanilla answer. Yeah, it's cool to see.
I mean, he's just a football guy. He didn't want to get his heart broken. He didn't want to lean into it too much. Didn't want to put too much hope. Didn't want to put all his eggs in that basket, but it worked out.
I'm just visioning the entire team around Mike Silver's laptop or iPad, whatever it was, and then being like going crazy nuts. Kittle's like, "Whoo, watch this one," and Debo's like, they're having a great time. And they're like, "Oh, go, come on, Kyler!" And then Kyle's in the back just fist pumping, like, "We got you guys, got you, you little mother." You're just going crazy, and Kyle's like, "Keep calm, keep composed." But now I'm thinking, if Chris Kosarek's behind him, he's like, come on, I got it, number 1 seed, man. And you're just like, Chris, stop screaming, stop yelling, stop cursing, please. But I'm assuming we got the patented Kyle this fist pump,
quiet
number
fist
1
pump.
seed, and is like, that was pretty cool.
You know what's interesting? The Eagles are officially the 5 seed now.
Well, that's because they're frauds. I mean, we known this. They're a good old Don DeSandro away from being in the wild card spot.
Things can change, of course, week 18, but right now the Cowboys are on top in the NFC East, and they are the 2 seed.
Well, that's your prediction,
NFC.
Right?
I thought they were going to win the division.
Look at you.
I haven't wavered.
And Jared Goff is still there.
Hey, they're 11-5. They could be the 2 seed. That's pretty good for the Lions.
Should have won last night.
They should have won.
But they didn't.
If they won, they'd be right there with the Niners at the top of the NFC. But
That'd
they
be pretty
didn't.
crazy if it was Niners, Lions, Eagles as the 3 seed, and then the Buccaneers as 4.
Buccaneers lost today. They got ran by the Saints
Derek
into
Carr.
Tampa Bay.
Derek Carr, dude.
It's been a weird season.
Oh, God. Like, even for San Francisco, it's been weird. Like, the Chiefs aren't that good anymore. Or, I'll rephrase that. The receivers aren't that good anymore. Kelsey ain't been the same since Taylor Swift said karma's a guy on the Chiefs. It just feels like that there's a lot of teams that are still trying to fight and claw their way into a playoff seeding where San Francisco is like, it's us and the Ravens at the top. We're not wet. There's no mud. There's no rain. It's all sunshine and rainbows. Now let's get healthy. That's all it is.
Yeah, I mean, that's the only thing standing between the 49ers and feeling great about themselves right now is their injury report. Speaking of, Kyle Shanahan was also asked after the game, again, also after the Eagles lost, the Niners clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC. He was asked about next week and potentially resting players. Here's what Kyle Shanahan had to say.
Try to rest some guys, but I mean, you can't rest everybody. It's too hard. I mean, you don't have enough players, so we got to fill the team without a doubt, and we're going to have a big week of practice. Still think there's lots of things we got to obviously get a lot better at, and the only way you do that is playing football and practicing football. So we'll have a big Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, figure out our roster as the week goes, and decide what we'll do for Sunday.
I think Cal's right. There's still some areas the Niners need to, hammer down and improve at. I mean, some of the tackling defensively again today wasn't great. I mean, they only gave up 10 points. They pitched a shutout in the second half. They did allow a drive deep into the red zone. They got the interception just shy of the end zone. That was Mooney Ward. Diamador Lenore also had one, but that was not near the red zone. But there was some missed tackles again. Brian Robinson carrying multiple defenders with him in the first half. Terry McLaurin running past Diamador Lenore down the right sideline.
Scary Terry getting it done.
There were a couple of not great defensive moments today for the Niners.
You could tell the minute Washington committed to the run in this one that they got momentum. And I don't know if you felt this way, but I sat back and said, uh-oh, like this might be their ticket to maybe not winning, but
keeping
at least
close.
Keeping them in the game,
Yeah.
right? And this game was 20-10. Like, it was there for the taking for Washington.
It was
now,
10-10.
And thankfully San Francisco played a pretty poor opponent today. Like, they didn't have, 3 starting offensive linemen. They didn't have 2 starting cornerbacks. Like, for this team to lose on Christmas Day the way they did, sometimes you're given a gift, a New Year's Eve gift. That is the Washington Commanders. They were a sacrificial lamb to get San Francisco back in the win column, to get the offense rolling again. And you put up 27 points. It's not too shabby. Yeah, it isn't 30. Yeah, it isn't 40. But sometimes you just have games like this late in the year where you look tired, you're banged up, you look kind of groggy, you had too much NyQuil last night, and you're like, what's going on? It's 10 o'clock on the East Coast. Oh, boy. And you come out there, and you just got to grind it out and get it done. Like, they got the win. Or the number, like, this was the best case scenario for a game like this. Nobody, from what we can tell, got hurt. You escaped injury from what we can tell.
McCaffrey looked like a minor calf thing.
Exactly.
He does have to play next
Had
week.
the game been close, probably would have continued to play.
I agree.
Trent Williams didn't aggravate the groin again, from what we can tell again. You won by 17 points, basically a 3-score game, and you're sitting back saying Warner probably not going to play next week. You're probably going to see Jalen Graham and D. Winters and maybe even Oren Burks back. You're going to see guys like Ross Dwelly and Charlie Warner. You're probably going to see a Sam Darnold, and maybe you even get Tyrion Davis-Price back there next week. Like, who knows? Like, you are essentially telling your team, like, we're going to play our starters maybe a quarter, call it a season, and we'll see you in 2 weeks at Levi's. And if for San Francisco, a team that desperately needed a win after a loss on Christmas Day, where you got humiliated in front of like 27 million people, you can sit back and say, it doesn't matter anymore. Who cares?
Yeah, does not matter anymore. It does not. And the Niners are past that. They're the 1 seed in the NFC. But to your point about the run defense in this game, it's been an issue now 3 consecutive weeks. It wasn't really bad today. I mean, you look at the rushing numbers for Washington. They only had 62 rushing yards. They did average on the ground as a team, they averaged 5.2. You look at what they did on the ground as a team, 4.4 per carry. Brian Robinson had a couple of big runs. Antonio Gibson only had 4 carries, but it seemed like every one of them was a chunk play. He had some chunk plays in this game. But I think, and I see it here on the YouTube chat, shout out to, who was it? Admin, we missed Eric Armstead. I agree 100%. I feel like I've said this after almost every game that he's missed, which has been like the last 4. He is so underrated as a run stopper in the middle of the defense. And I think you really see how he impacts games when he's not in it anymore. And you think back to 2021 when the 49ers really struggled, and then they put that run together late in the season. It was when Armstead switched to the interior of the defense. Yep. And he absolutely changed how this defense defends. They just simply do not allow many yards on the ground. When Armstead is in the game playing one of those defensive tackle positions, they're elite defensively against the run, and without him, they're clearly not as good. So I think Armstead 100% is missed dearly, and the 49ers, they're not going to need him next week. They're not going to need him, of course, first week of the playoffs because they have a bye. But if this is a team that's going to win a Super Bowl, they need Armstead healthy. They miss him a lot.
Well, go to last night's game, Dallas and the Lions. The Lions' secondary is not great, but what they do is they stop teams on the ground. They control the pace of the game, and they keep a team like Dallas, who's really explosive through the air, they keep them to 20 points, 21 points. Like,
but CeeDee Lamb goes off for 240 yards.
But like that feels like if you're San Francisco, imagine playing a team like the Rams without Eric Armstead. We'll see it next week. Now, starters probably aren't going to play a big time or a lot of the time, but Kyren Williams has been just found money for them this season. And while I would still pick San Francisco to beat the Rams in a playoff game, if you can stop Kyren Williams on the ground, you're going to have to or force a team to be one-dimensional. Now, Stafford's good and he's great. He's probably going to be a Hall of Famer, right?
Yeah.
But if you can make the opposition one-dimensional, take away an aspect of their offense that makes them dangerous, right now San Francisco cannot do that without Eric Armstead. And Hargrave, he's been solid all year long. Kinlaw's had a good year, finally being productive, but the guys up front just haven't been great when Armstead isn't on the field in run defense. And you get him back, you can make a team like the Lions, like the Rams, like Philadelphia, you can make them one-dimensional, which makes your path to victory even easier.
The other thing defensively for the 49ers, they only had 1 sack of Sam Howell, and the Commanders, they're a turnstile. Yeah. They give up sacks like they give up sacks like it's free and whatever. Like they give up sacks like nobody's business. 60 sacks allowed this season. Niners got 1, and they never really even hit Sam Howell. It was a sack where he was forced out of the pocket, ran to the sideline. Cleveland Farrell ultimately kind of just shoveled him out of bounds. That was the Niners' only sack of the game. It wasn't necessarily a bad performance by the front 7. But I don't know about you. I was expecting a little bit more dominance from the Niners front, getting to Sam Howell and making it different. Now, I know we're being very critical here. The Niners only gave up 10 points, did not allow a point in the second half, but the run defense at times has been an issue. Wasn't terrible today, but there were moments. And then throughout really the entire game, Sterling, I mean, I was expecting a lot more pressure on Sam Howell. The Niners, they got to him. The pocket would collapse on him, but they couldn't really bring him to the ground. I was a little surprised that they didn't make Sam Howell a little bit more uncomfortable with pressure.
This feels like a game where the pressure total might be like 35, but the sack total equals 1, which is kind of how it was when they were losing games earlier this season, which if they were playing maybe a Joe Burrow, a Lamar Jackson, a Jalen Hurts.
They'd make you pay for it.
Right, whereas Sam Howell can at certain times, did in this game, Terry McLaurin's big touchdown catch or big play in this game, they're just not, like, the Commanders need a quarterback. He ain't the guy, but this does feel like they're going to have 35 pressures or 28 pressures, whatever it is, in 1 sack. But even on Mooney Ward's pick, who was there getting home? Nick Bosa. He was a step away. Like, this is a game where even the pressures were actually making plays for the defense. Mooney Ward steps up, gets the pick. Then later in the game, Lenore gets the pick as well. Like, where there wasn't sacks, there was takeaways. And I think if you're a team looking for a silver lining or sitting back saying, we didn't get any sacks, you got 2 takeaways. Had that happened against the Ravens last week, we're sitting back saying, wow, that game was actually pretty close. Because last week, the defense was the turnstile. They couldn't stop anybody in that second half, and the Ravens just ran through them constantly. Maybe it's me looking for the small victory here of like, yeah, that run defense wasn't great, but you did get 2 takeaways, and you got some pressure. So I do think there are things to build upon. It wasn't perfect by any means, but I do think for San Francisco, Nick Bosa was getting home a handful of times, just wasn't finishing the stack off. There were plenty of times in this game where Sam Howell was moving around, running in circles, and had to throw it away. And sometimes you credit the quarterback for getting it done and living to fight another play, but you play Matthew Stafford next week, better quarterback, no starters. It feels like we're not going to really see or see them tested again until playoff time, which might be good for them health-wise, but part of me does want the starters to play next week simply because I want them to work on the things that maybe didn't go their way against the Commanders today.
Well, that's what Shanahan said when asked about resting players, is obviously we don't need to win, but we know we still have a lot to work on. We have a really important week of practice. I feel like the Niners, not quite like a preseason game because it's different than that. You're not trying out like people to see if they're going to make the roster, and you're not really probably going to change your plan much in terms of what you might do in the postseason. But the Niners can use this game, Week 18, that they do not need to win. They're already clinched the number 1 seed. If you're just joining us, the Eagles lost to the Arizona Cardinals today, and with the Niners win 27-10 over the Commanders, the Niners have locked up the number 1 seed in the NFC. But the 49ers can kind of pick and choose what key players play. If you feel like the run defense was an issue, you can focus on that and you can pick and choose certain things. And it allows the 49ers to worry a little bit more about that, worry a little bit more about potential development as opposed to trying to win the football game. And the Niners can use this as, kind of like a preseason game, kind of like a scrimmage with a different squad, and focus on those sorts of things before they gear up for the postseason. Then they have the bye to begin the playoffs. So this is really, really valuable for Kyle Shanahan and the 49ers, and you get the bye and the extra time off to rest some players. Kyle Shanahan was also asked about that and how valuable the bye is to begin a postseason run. Here's Kyle Shanahan.
It's huge. These last couple weeks, we've been a little banged up. There's been a couple positions that we've been getting real thin at. Guys had to push through at a number of spots, and some of those guys are doing that. Hopefully, this will help them out.
It feels like kind of a weight lifted off the 49ers' shoulders because you could tell the way they played on Monday, they were a little shell-shocked and they were frustrated because they just kind of bought themselves an extra week of work with that loss on Monday. But then the Cardinals just got it right back for them, did them a major favor, and now they have not, less work, but you don't have to worry about the physicality of a football game as much anymore because you can rest your players who are in danger of potentially aggravating something. So it feels like a weight has lifted off the 49ers' shoulders after the disappointment of Monday, and now they're right back where they were a couple of weeks ago.
We'll go back to whether it was the preseason, the offseason, during the season when they were losing 3 games in a row. Go back when they were winning 6 games in a row. This team said, hey, Like, yeah, we won today, but our goal isn't the division. It isn't, just going to the playoffs. They wanted the 1 seed. They knew how important it was. And if you look at the stats, 54-ish% of teams that get the 1 seed end up going to the Super Bowl. Like, you are essentially giving yourself the greatest advantage in regards to getting to the Super Bowl.
And it's probably even more important now because there's only one bye.
Exactly.
I mean, how long were there 2 byes?
You're right, yeah. It feels like maybe
You're the
instead
only
of 50,
team.
it's 60% now.
You're the only team in your conference that does not have to play Wild Card Weekend. That's huge.
Like San Francisco today, with help from the Cowboys last night and help from the Cardinals this afternoon, they may have given themselves their best chance to win the Super Bowl in, I guess, since 2019, but you can probably even go back further when they were probably a better roster, 1995, 94, when they beat the Chargers. Sorry, Evan Giddings, but it happened. Like, it feels like that, like, what San Francisco has as a roster, we can all point to and say, oh my goodness, it's one of the best in the entire league. This is the best offense they've had in, 40 years per DVOA. Like, right now, you give this historically great team the first round bye. This is their best chance to finally put away this almost 27 years of torture and get this fan base a championship.
Well, certainly a better chance than the last 2 seasons.
Yeah.
I mean, you go into 2021 playoffs. Were they the 7 or were they the 6? They were the 6 seed, right?
6 seed, I believe.
Because they went to Dallas to begin.
Yes.
And Dallas was the 2. Yeah, Dallas didn't have... Yeah. No, Dallas was the 3. I forget exactly. But you had to go to Dallas, you had to go to Green Bay, and then you had to go to Los Angeles and the Rams.
And your quarterback had a jacked up thumb and a messed up shoulder.
And then last year you were really good, but you were the 2 seed, didn't have the bye, and you had to go to the best team in the NFC, their house in the NFC Championship game. So certainly a lot of things can change. I mean, how many times was... You get the rest versus rest conversation. Like, I can remember how many times would Eli Manning and the Giants go into Green Bay and knock off the 1 seed Packers. Like, that happened a lot.
The Brett Favre, Ryan Grant, Al Harris Packers.
Right?
Like, what is going on?
Like, that will become a conversation. Like, it will certainly be a storyline. Like, oh, is it too much rest? Are they going to be rusty when they come out for the divisional round? But if you're just trying to handicap the Niners' odds of going to the Super Bowl, of winning the Super Bowl this year versus the last 2 years, is clearly going to be its highest this season.
Well, if everything goes your way at this current moment, you might be playing Seattle, which, fun, cool, can't wait.
What's the score of the Seattle-Pittsburgh game right now?
I think Seattle's up 10-7. Let
me check.
Maybe it's vice versa. But it feels like...
10-7 Steelers, 10 to go in the second quarter.
Yeah.
You rooting for the Seahawks?
Yeah.
You want to get them into the playoffs, huh?
Well, I would like to play them again. It makes our life a lot easier.
It does seem like the Niners just simply have their number.
Imagine beating them 6 times in 2 years.
Might drive Pete Carroll to retirement. You never know.
I hope. Put the pasture.
All right, we got to take a break here on Overtime. It's Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you, reacting to a really nice day. A great weekend for the 49ers. You got help from the Cowboys last night as they beat the Lions. You win today over the Commanders, and then the Cardinals upset the Eagles in Philadelphia. Add all that together, the Niners have locked up the number 1 seed in the NFC. It feels great, baby. Feels great to be a 49er fan.
You can't throw that out there
no one's
going to notice that. It feels great, baby.
Feels great, baby. Feels great, baby. Anyways, we got more Overtime coming up. We want to hear from you, Mitch and Mark. I see you. We'll come to you on the other side as Overtime continues with Grandy and Sterling right here on 95.7 The Game.
Wendy's Peppermint Frosty and Frosty Cream Cold Brew make the perfect gift for anyone in your life. Especially for
return. They're going to say down by contact all the way back at the 5-yard line. Still, though, a 5th interception for Ward to lead the 49ers.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Welcome back. Mooney Ward now 5 interceptions on the season, 3 in the last 3 weeks. He had a pick 6 and another one against the Arizona Cardinals. Was shut out, and the whole Niners team was shut out in terms of turnovers against the Ravens on Monday, but he got back into the interception column today. Also, Diamador Lenore had an interception. The call you just heard, Adam Amin on
Almost
Fox. Almost had 2. He probably should have had 2.
It's pretty close.
I mean, that kind of bounced off like a shoulder pad through his hands.
Then actually almost had 3. He almost caught one towards the end of the game, too.
Oh, you're right. That was a crazy acrobatic that the sideline. Should have had 3.
I'm sure your heart was saying, go Ducks, go Ducks.
It was.
Ducks.
Always. That's why I miss Armstead so much.
That's the only reason.
Not because he's like a good football player.
You were torn apart of the DeForest Buckner trade. You were like, seriously, what's going on?
I know, right? They chose one Duck over the other. I don't really know how to feel.
So they don't fly together is what you're saying.
Oh.
Emilio!
All right, you're listening to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you. The Niners win, the Eagles lose. The Niners are the 1 seed in the NFC. As promised, Mitch in New Jersey and Mark in Berkeley. I'll come to you in just a second. I did, though, want to get this out. Kyle Shanahan's update on Christian McCaffrey. It might be a little more serious than we think.
Uh-oh.
Kyle Shanahan said, don't know. It might be a calf strain of some sort, but here's Kyle Shanahan expanding on Christian McCaffrey's injury.
I mean, we think he'll be all right. I don't know if he would have been able to go next week or not, but we'll have to find out more tomorrow. But he was moving around all right on the sidelines, so hoping it's not too bad, but we'll know till tomorrow.
So am I misunderstanding that? Kyle Shanahan was saying, if next week was a meaningful game, we're not sure if he's playing. That's what he said, right?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound great.
Really worries me. Like, to many people, he's this team's MVP. And if you're telling me that, now, thankfully, it's not a meaningful game next week, and thankfully he will have what seems to be 2.5 weeks to recuperate and get healthy, maybe even 3 weeks to, the calf strain can go away. But if it's serious and Chris McCaffrey is just limited in playing, well, a limited CMC is better than most running backs in the league.
Yeah.
You don't want your MVP caliber player maybe only being able to have 16 touches. You want to have him around 25.
Yeah, I'm with you. This seems like a bigger deal than we all thought it was. It felt like during the game, he's not playing because they don't need him to. They're up by 2
He's
scores.
on the sideline jogging.
Elijah Mitchell's playing well. Like, why would you, it felt like Brock Purdy from last week where you were on a patchwork offensive line, you were down by 3 scores, why put him back in and put him in harm's way? That's what it felt like. But that comment from Shanahan, it has me a little bit worried. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that. We'll probably know more tomorrow. I think the Niners will still be in normal, even though it is New Year's Day, and we'll probably get an update tomorrow, if not on Tuesday. We'll, of course, keep you updated here on 95.7 The Game. But let's go out to the phone lines here on Overtime. Up first is Mitch in New Jersey. Mitch, thanks for holding. You're on Overtime with Randy and Sterling. How you doing today, Mitch? Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Happy New Year, and healthy New Year to you and your family. Thanks for taking my call. I think these 49ers never had so much talent. Wide receivers, tight end, and running backs. So, plus they have the extra game too, and it is a passing league. But some quarterback. But I hope they can knock out the Rams. But I'm glad to see. I don't even want to see Elijah play. But somehow Sam Darnold can show because he'd be showcasing to be a starter for another team because he has some good quarterback and advice there. But I hope we get all healthy and we have 3 weeks rest. Really 2 weeks, right? Before we prepare. Things are looking good. I think it'll be Baltimore and 49ers. What do you think? And thanks for taking my call.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. Appreciate you tuning into Overtime as always here on 95.7 The Game. Yeah, 2 weeks off, really. You have a game next week, but it's not going to be important for the 49ers. Now, Kyle Shanahan has said, as we heard last segment, you can't really rest all your starters because you just simply don't have enough bodies on an NFL team to do that. But you can rest Trent Williams. You can rest McCaffrey. It seems very likely that's going to happen. You don't need to play Brock Purdy at all. George Kittle can get some time off. Deebo Samuel could get some time off. All those guys who maybe have some injuries in their history, and you're a little bit worried about that. And then you have the next week entirely off. So for a number of guys, you will get 2 complete weeks off. And this stage of the season, that is so incredibly rare and so valuable.
Mitch didn't even want to see Elijah Mitchell next week.
Yeah, was that because Mitch doesn't like Elijah Mitchell, or because he's trying to protect him for the playoffs?
Well, it's his namesake, Mitch Mitchell. Can't just not blame Mitch.
It's true.
I think it was more so if CMC's hurt, you don't want to lose your number 2 running back.
I see.
But then you're playing Jordan Mason. Okay, I'm cool with that. Then it's Jeremy McNichols and Tyrion Davis-Price, who was cut earlier this year. Logan Ryan was given his number. Then he got re-signed to the practice squad because nobody else wanted him. And then Logan Ryan said, you can have back your number. So
good guy, Logan Ryan.
Oh, yeah.
Nice guy.
Got to start today. I don't think he played too poorly today. I thought veteran guy, plugged and played, no problem.
Yeah, I think we can get more into that in a little bit as well. Logan Ryan, there was a couple of questions I had in terms of injury replacements coming into this game. Logan Ryan was one of them, and you're right. I think he held up pretty well. But as promised, we got to go back out to the phone lines. Up next is Mark in Berkeley. Mark, what's up? You're on Overtime here on 95.7 The Game with Grandy and Sterling. How you doing today? Happy New Year. Mark, you there? All right, Mark. Too late. Sorry about it.
That was your name.
Give us a call back, Mark. Yeah, he's not doing too well for Marks around the world. However, I know you spelled it when you put it on the board, Mark with the K.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm Mark with the C, so it's kind of separate, you know?
Do you hold superiority with that? Like,
absolutely.
You're Mark with the K, but I'm Mark with the C.
Mark C's are so much
You got your pinkies
better.
out, right?
Mm-hmm. Fancy. Mm-hmm.
Drinking your tea. All right.
Yes, I am. All right, let's go back to some sound from Kyle Shanahan. We've heard a lot about him talking about the bye week, the Eagles' loss. You just heard him talk about Christian McCaffrey and his injury, which does seem to be perhaps a little bit more serious than we all thought during the game. Kyle Shanahan saying, at least our interpretation of it is, if Sunday against the Rams in Week 18 was a meaningful game, was a gotta-have-it game for the Niners, that he's not sure of McCaffrey's status. But Shanahan also talked about Brock Purdy. Here he is talking about his young quarterback and how he bounced back after what was undoubtedly the worst game of his professional career. Here's Shanahan.
He studied his tail off all week, practiced well, knew some of the reasons he made some mistakes in the game before, and just treated it like any other week. And I think it's good to get out there, and didn't have any picks today, which I think would be good to not have to answer questions on those. But I thought it was a hell of a deal for him. I mean, I've had a lot of real good quarterbacks in this organization, and just being told in there that he broke the record for all-time yards in a year, I think that's a pretty big accomplishment by him and everyone else in there. So it was cool to do that today and to lock up the 1 seed.
I know we've been very complimentary of Brock Purdy this whole season, Sterling, but it feels like he's the kind of guy who bounces back from mistakes and bad performances and bad moments. Like, it feels like he has the ability to compartmentalize it, but not forget it, and learn from it, but not let it like get him down or affect his play moving forward. It feels like he has that ability, as all of the great quarterbacks have, just to kind of move on from it quick and not let it kind of linger and hurt your play moving forward, which is a great characteristic to have.
Well, it's perfect, too, because when Jimmy G was here, the conversation was, he throws a pick, but he's perfect after he throws a pick. He always goes down and he scores a touchdown, gets his team back into it. For Purdy, it's like, you have one bad game, and you're probably not going to see those same mistakes next week or maybe ever again. Like, those mistakes are going to be so minimized the next time you see them, they're not going to cost you a game. So it would not surprise me if Brock Purdy, I won't say never has a 4-interception game again, but those mistakes, at least this season, I do not think are going to be what causes San Francisco to lose a game. Like, the way he plays, it's almost like a pitcher in baseball where, I gave up a home run. Okay, well, you got to face the guy next. So you have to go back out there and get right back on the mound and get the next guy out. For Brock Purdy, it's the exact same way. We don't have time for you to be on the sideline and start complaining and moaning, and like, you got to swallow your pride and say, I made a mistake, and what comes next And thankfully for Purdy today, it was 2 touchdowns and a win. Now, for him, that kind of feels like the common this year where it's like, yeah, a bad game. Then I won by 17 the next week.
Yeah, he wasn't great, but
still won by almost 20 points against the Commanders. So, like, there's a reason why he's in the MVP conversation. There's a reason why there was a handful of teams on the phone ready to sign him after he went undrafted. San Francisco said, we have to get this guy in the building. And you watch the way he talks, the way he carries himself. He just gets it. He has it. He's composed. He's calm. He looks like he walked out of a JCPenney's catalog after a winter sale, but I'm certainly okay with that if that's how my quarterback's going to act and say, look, the Ravens game wasn't my best. Now I'm going to lead this team to victory by almost 20 points today.
I think he shops at Kohl's, not JCPenney.
More of a Mervin's guy.
Wow.
Throwback.
For real, a throwback. I haven't heard the name Mervin's in a long time. All right, guess who's back on hold? It's Mark in Berkeley.
With a K.
Mark with the K. What's up, Mark with the K? You're on Overtime with Grandy and Sterling. How you doing?
What I got to say, Armstead is my favorite player on the team.
Go Ducks.
I would be tripping off Purdy's performance against the Ravens if our defense was healthy that day. But you got to give him a break. And also that field goal that we missed in that 1-point game. So, but I'm his biggest fan. And I'm telling you right now, if we're going to win against the Ravens in the Super Bowl, we need our defense healthy. And remember, a lot of people know this. I don't even think you're allowed to run the ball in the Super Bowl anymore. I don't know why. That's just the rule now. So we better get our quarterbacks' arms healthy, both of them, and in shape and be ready to pass. Because I think the Super Bowl commercial or whatever, they don't want people running the ball in the Super Bowl. Isn't that true?
I mean, the league is certainly going in one direction, Mark. You're right. It is becoming an increasingly pass-happy league. But a run game in the playoffs in the Super Bowl is incredibly valuable.
I don't think you're going to not see Christian McCaffrey run the football 25 times in the Super Bowl.
He's just going to have 14 catches, Sterling, is what he's going to do.
He'll have 10 carries, 14 catches for 1,000 yards, is what you're saying.
Yeah, Super Bowl MVP,
yeah.
Christian McCaffrey.
Well, actually, no, it'll actually go to Brock Purdy still when he has 1 touchdown for 150 yards because only quarterback
bias.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like Lamar Jackson's about to win the MVP, but he's deserving of it.
I don't care, dude.
You don't care or you don't think he's deserving of it?
Would you vote for Lamar over Christian McCaffrey? Forget the whole bias thing. Would you pick?
I think I'd have to.
Why?
Because Lamar is the quarterback of the best team in the NFL, and
is he, though?
He's had his 2 best performances the last couple of weeks of the year against really good teams.
Why does that matter?
They dominated both.
Why does it matter?
What have you done for me lately?
Who cares? I don't care what you did lately.
I'm just saying it's recency bias.
Yeah, but that's not how life works. It's not how it should work.
That's how voting works.
Yeah. Dumb. Dumb.
Right. More Kyle Shanahan on his quarterback. The play you were talking about earlier when we kicked off the show, Purdy's scramble to the right, directing Ayuk back to the left in the back of the end zone for the touchdown. Here's Kyle Shanahan, his head coach, on that scramble touchdown throw to Ayuk from Brock Purdy.
I was a little nervous at first. Saw him running around, and I just wanted to make sure we don't lose yards or anything like that because I thought we were at least in field goal range. But he bought some time, and then when I saw that ball leave going across the field and quickly looked to where it was, and he was all alone, quickly was excited. So it was a hell of a play by him, and it's great to get 7 there.
He was nervous. That's fair. I mean, you know what that play reminded me of? It was the play in the playoffs against Seattle last year where Purdy,
the Ayuk drop
in the back corner of the end zone where Purdy made 3 pass rushers missed, spun, rolled out to the right, juked one defender who was trying to take his head off, and then steps in as he's about to get hit and throws a laser down the sideline to the back right corner of the end zone for Ayuk. It hits him right in the hands,
man.
And there's not a defender there to knock it away, and he just drops it. It reminded me of that play, the way that he extended the pocket and extended the play and bought himself time and set his feet and made a throw, and he has this kind of crazy awareness of where all the pass rushers are at all times. Yeah. It really reminded me of that play. The only difference is this one went for a touchdown to Ayuk. The other one didn't.
I feel like I've seen this play 10 times this season where the play breaks down, the pocket breaks down, he goes to his left, makes a guy miss going to his right, then somehow just there's a guy in the end zone and he hits him. Against the Bengals, happened twice. I'm sure I'm missing so many times where it's happened, but it feels like it's happened. Being at practice this year, he was doing that stuff in practice. And if you're going to practice how you play, like Brock Purdy's practicing like an MVP, broken play, going to make the off-scheduled throw for a home run and get you a touchdown, like that's the way he practices, where usually the play's blown dead. All right, reset, re-rack it, move on. Purdy's like, no, like I'm going to make the off-scheduled play in practice. And that carries over into game time for him, where you can tell when the play breaks down, there's no panic. It's like, I'm used to this. I practice for this. This is what I'm here for. And he, like, had the name Mahomes been attached to that play all over Bleacher Report, ESPN, like everyone's like, oh my goodness, did you see Patrick Mahomes' throw? Oh my God. And it's like, no, it's Brock Purdy. You're like, what the heck? Like, that was elite level. That is, sidearm, no look, diving. Put the animation in Madden. Like, please. Like, Brock Purdy's doing things that you sit back and you just sit back in awe. It's like I saw Gandalf turn from the gray to the white, and I'm like, I can't see. I'm blinded. Like, oh my goodness. Like, Ian McClellan, you're killing me. He's a magician. He's a wizard.
Honestly, Kyle Shanahan saying at the very beginning of that cut is, I was nervous, right? Like, honestly, I feel like Kyle Shanahan would almost wish that Brock Purdy wasn't so confident and daring in those kind of moments.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, one, it's you throw back across your body, it's a dangerous throw, and it could get picked off, tipped, whatever. But also, two, like, you're exposing yourself physically. Like, he took that hit in the playoffs against Seattle, that play that I'm talking about, where he extended the play and made the throw to Ayuk. He got lit up. Might have been the hardest hit he's taken as a professional. Like, he got lit up. But I think there's a part of Kyle Shanahan who's like, all right, Brock, tone it down just a little bit. Like, I know that you can make these kinds of plays. I know you're good enough to do it. I know that you have the confidence to do it. But let's limit it just a little bit, because we don't want turnovers. We don't want to get you hurt. If that happens, this season is over, and we have serious Super Bowl aspirations. But you can't be upset with this one, because it turned into what ended up being a wide-open, pretty easy touchdown.
It makes Shanahan nervous. Does it make you nervous to see Brock Purdy do that stuff?
No, I get excited.
Right, you're like, oh, something's good's going to happen here. Who's going to get beat downfield for a big play or a touchdown? And, like, maybe it's just me growing up, and I'm sure you as well, having to go through the Tim Rattays and the Cody Pickett's and the Alex Smith pre-Andy Reid and the Colin Kaepernick, who was great for a handful of years.
Sean Hill and JT O'Sullivan.
Right, and you're like, wow. And even Jimmy G, like, for all the success he had, there just wasn't the explosiveness, there wasn't the off-schedule stuff. There just wasn't when the play breaks down, my quarterback can save it and still get us big chunk plays. And Purdy,
those quarterbacks would just rarely leave you in awe.
Whereas Brock Purdy is doing things or regularly doing things that leave you in awe.
Yeah.
That puts him with the Lamar Jacksons, albeit very differently, but the Mahomeses, the Allens, where, he isn't stature, he isn't big, he doesn't have the rocket arm, but it just somehow he has the X factor of, like, man, like, with the game on the line, maybe not down by points, but when I need you to make an off-schedule play to put the game on ice, like, he's going to figure it out and somehow put this game away for us.
I feel like that's the characteristic of Brock that gets undervalued, undersold, maybe just ignored, like, the most. It's his athleticism, and I'm not saying he's near...
It's that 10-yard split, huh?
It is. Not saying he's near Lamar Jackson, because Lamar Jackson is one of one in terms of athleticism and current quarterbacks, and he's just remarkable and incredible and so difficult to game plan against. But I feel like where Brock Purdy gets sold short more than anywhere else, and there's a competition for that category because he gets sold short in a lot of ways. But I think it's his ability to evade pass rushers, extend plays, keep his eyes downfield, and deliver a ball that's on target when he's on the move. He has this innate sense of knowing where every defensive lineman, pass rusher, linebacker is. And he gives them like a little feint to the inside, gives them a little jab step. He cuts inside for a second.
Well, has he?
Like on that play we're talking about where he ultimately evaded to the pocket right, threw back across his body left to Ayuk. Before he even left the pocket, he felt the rush coming from the right side, kind of turned his back like he was going to run to the left, took like 2 steps that way, and then just quickly spun off his left shoulder, and the pass rusher was left in the dust, and he suddenly has like 15 yards of space off to the right. He had like, it feels like he has eyes in the back of his head. Honestly, he has such a great sense of knowing where every defender is, and I feel like that's a characteristic that most people aren't willing to admit that he has, but he does. He shows that kind of thing, that kind of play, like at least once a week.
It's almost like watching, I don't want to say Kevin Durant, but in a way it's watching the elite NBA player play ISO, or like James Harden, where you're like, someone's getting cooked. Like someone's getting an ankle broken, or Stephen Curry, who's like, he's going to be off a screen somehow. He's going to go behind the back. He's just going to do something one-on-one, and you're going to say, oh my goodness. Like, it gets me excited just seeing Brock Purdy outside of the pocket, because I know that it's either going to be a throwaway and it's not going to be a turnover, or he's going to find a Kittle, an Ayuk, a Debo, a CMC downfield 15, 20, 40 yards, even for a touchdown, and you're going to sit there and say, that is stuff that Pro Bowlers do, that all pro players do, that MVP elite players do, and while he has a long career to go, those are plays that future Hall of Fame talents do. Like, there's a reason why the Mahomeses and the Jacksons are so lauded. Yes, their accomplishments are crazy. They can do things that other players cannot do. Brock Purdy's in that conversation. Now, there are obviously tiers to that and levels to it, but Brock Purdy can do things the majority of quarterbacks can't do.
No, you're 100% right. I agree with you, and I feel like he deserves more credit than he's getting nationally. That's been the case all season long, but I feel like Monday night on Christmas kind of served as like the national confirmation that Brock Purdy isn't as good as everyone has been saying that he is.
He's not him.
That's what the conversation had turned into. And there's probably not nearly as many people not probably. No way.
Nick Wright is not watching Niners Commanders.
No way that there's nearly as many people watching today as watched on Christmas night. It's just unfortunate for Brock that performance came in front of a national audience, but doesn't matter for the Niners. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. They win again today. They get help from the Cardinals, who beat the Eagles, and the Niners have locked up the first round bye in the NFC playoffs. We got to take a break, but plenty more to get into. You can give us a call as well and join us here on Overtime, 888-957-9570. We've got more Brock Purdy sound coming in. We'll hear from him. We'll hear from the Niners quarterback, a little bit more from Kyle Shanahan as well on Brock Purdy. All that and more is coming up as Overtime rolls along. It's Grandy and Sterling with you right here on 95.7 The Game.
Boy, am I glad to be done with my holiday shopping.
Oh, I know.
And now I just want to relax.
Me too. Well, except there's one more store we should check out.
Oh, no way.
Because this week...
Intercepted, and that's the game. The Cardinals come to Philadelphia and knock off the Eagles. Jonathan Gannon, in his return to Philly, pulls off a massive upset.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Well, that was the final play of the Arizona Cardinals' victory over the Eagles in Philadelphia. That, paired with the Niners' win in Washington, D.C. today, means the 49ers have clinched the number 1 seed in the NFC. They don't need to worry about winning and losing next week, and they have a bye to begin their postseason run. And the NFC runs through Santa Clara. The Niners, if they just keep on winning, they do not have to leave the Bay Area until the Super Bowl, which is in Vegas, close by as well. But again, that was Joe Davis on Fox calling the end of the Cardinals' win over the Eagles. Niners quarterback Brock Purdy, the Niners were workmanlike. They got through their game efficiently, which meant they got to watch the end of that Eagles loss. Here's the Niners quarterback Brock Purdy on seeing that ending.
Yeah, it was sweet to be able to have that kind of moment. You know, I'd grown up sort of watching like TV clips and stuff of like teams together watching and celebrating another team win for their case. And so for us to be able to do that, I was sort of just like taking it in. I was like, man, this is something that I've seen on TV growing up. And now we get to all cram into a corner of the locker room and watch on a little TV. So it was special.
Brock is so wholesome.
He's living his best life.
I grew up watching clips of teams celebrating when other teams win and other ones lose.
The fact that this kid was just out there husking corn for his whole life, and it's like, yeah, I used to watch clips of other teams celebrating, and now we're that team.
Yeah, do you think during the bye week and the wild card round he's going to go back to Iowa?
I feel like if he did, he might get criticized for it. Like,
week.
you got a playoff game, Brock, and you're out there shucking corn. Like, what are you doing? Get back in the field. Go back on the practice field.
They might give him a couple of days off.
I feel like you kind of have to, right?
Yeah.
Honestly, if you wanted to take next Sunday off and go out in the cornfields, fine. Just don't even show up.
They don't even need you at SoFi, or I guess it's in Santa Clara.
We have the Red Rifle Jr. Okay. Sam Donald. That's D-A-H-R. Donald. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Watch Sam Darnold play really well on Sunday, and then you're going to have people being like, well, there's a quarterback controversy.
Yeah, what's Trey Lance at?
Third string in Dallas.
Ow!
Dallas is currently the 2 seed in the NFC, Sterling. You better watch out.
Is Trey Lance going to go to the Super Bowl?
Uh-huh.
Oh, God.
Watch.
It does make me laugh, the fact that, so let's just say San Francisco gets all the way to the Super Bowl. I'm not going to say who wins or loses. It'll be them. But they get to win, and Jimmy Garoppolo's now home. How fun is that?
You have this vendetta against Jimmy Garoppolo.
No, dude, trust me, of the fan base, I am like one of the biggest, like, Jimmy was so underrated. He was so good. Like, obviously Brock is so much better than him.
Doesn't sound like you feel that way.
I'm just saying, it's funny how the world works sometimes. Right? Like, trade Trey Lance away, get him opportunity elsewhere. Dallas third string quarterback. Same thing you would have been here in San Francisco. Jimmy G, get him out of your Santa Clara. No Kyle Shanahan. See what he can do. And then he gets benched by Vegas. And you're like, oh, like, what the heck? And now they can go to Vegas and actually get it done.
Oh, in Jimmy's house.
In his house.
Yeah.
In his house, brother.
Hasn't really been his house the last, like, month and a half.
That thing has been, they evicted that fool. They said, get out. And he was like, but I have to sleep.
All jokes aside about Jimmy Garoppolo, it's clear that the Niners quarterback room is in incredible hands now with Brock Purdy.
It's not as handsome, though. I will say that.
Definitely
not
not.
as handsome.
Sorry, Brock. Hope you didn't hear that.
Brock's a handsome guy. It's about Sam Darnold ain't a handsome guy. That's the issue.
Oh, and Jimmy's just on a different level, right?
Dude, GQ model. Like he can have so many other jobs that aren't quarterback and save his body. He's like, no, I want the pain.
Oh, and he feels the pain every time he steps out there on the field. My guy gets hit
so
hard every game he plays.
So bad.
My God. He gets punished every time he steps on the field. Yeah, poor Jimmy. I agree.
I love Jimmy. Such a good guy.
Oh, he did
great
wonders
teammate
for the organization.
So many wins here. Like, man.
He was great. But back to Brock Purdy, something that we were talking about a little bit ago. It's his ability to compartmentalize mistakes, learn from them, grow from them. Here's Brock Purdy about how he felt coming off of that Monday night, Christmas night loss to the Ravens, and how he felt like he just simply let his teammates down and he wanted to get that taste out of his mouth.
I mean, just like what I said before in the other conferences, in terms of, just feeling bad for my team, and their mindset going into that game. Everyone was ready to play, and I feel like I obviously didn't play up to the standard that I hold myself to, and that's what I meant. Like, I just felt like I'd let them down, but they had my back all week, and to be able to come out in a game like this and get the ball rolling again and put up some points and defense do their thing, it felt good.
I feel like feeling that way is a little bit dangerous, Sterling, because you can almost put a little too much pressure on yourself, right? Like,
sure,
I was the reason we lost last week. I need to be better. I need to play better because if I don't, we're going to lose again.
You can become Josh Allen and play hero ball too much.
You can try.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can kind of maybe lose sight of just making the simple play and making the right decision every single time. But you put a little bit too much pressure on yourself, but that does not seem to be a problem for Brock Purdy.
I think Brock takes a lot of responsibility for the team's success and its losses, maybe even more so in their losses of, hey, when we struggle, it's my job as a leader of this team, as a captain of this team, to make sure we're on track. And when we're not, especially after a game like the Ravens where he threw 4 interceptions, now, are all of those his fault? You can dissect that however you want to, but there ain't no doubt in my mind that he saw that box score and said, I threw 4 picks.
That was ugly.
That I was not good enough today. And I think for him, knowing you're playing the Commanders, it's not about lighting the next team up or playing hero ball. It's about how can we go out there, play clean, get the win, get back to our brand of football. They ran the ball nearly 40 times today, held the ball for like 30-plus minutes, whatever it was, and they won by 17 points. If that is not a Kyle Shanahan, San Francisco 49ers brand of football, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and so how does Brock Purdy kind of get that mindset right? How does he kind of flip the switch from the struggles last year, watching the tape, learning from that, and bouncing back with a really good game here today? I mean, you look at his numbers, they don't absolutely jump off the page, but he was 22 for 28, efficient, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and did not turn the ball over. Here's Brock Purdy on his mindset entering this game after a rough one on Monday night.
Stay present, don't get caught up in what's going on around and what people are saying and all that kind of stuff. There's so much more football to be played. And so for myself, understanding that and trusting the process and the routine that I've done all season and since I've been playing in the NFL, that's where my mind was at, especially after last game. There didn't need to be a drastic change in anything. I needed to be smart with the ball and execute better, simple as that. So just being present and saying, taking it one day at a time.
Do you think Brock was disappointed? Obviously, he was disappointed in his performance and that it cost the team a win, potentially. Do you think Brock is upset that he's now likely out of the MVP race? Do you think that bothers him?
I would like to say no, because what's more important, you winning the MVP or getting the number 1 seed, winning the NFC West?
But the normal reaction is, of course I'm disappointed, right? But does that stuff matter to him at all? At least at this stage of his career. I don't know.
I'm sure it matters. I mean, I think if you asked him, would you, even if you had lost, would you wanted to play better on Christmas against the Ravens? He would have said, of course. I would have rather only thrown 1 pick than 4 and lost by 1 point or whatever it was. The winning's most important for him, but I do think that there is this, how great would it have been had I won the MVP? How cool would that have been? I'm sure it's an accolade he wants to win eventually. Now, does it supersede the team awards? No, it doesn't. But I think for him, Lo Neal said last week it was the first time we saw him blink when the lights got bright. A lot of quarterbacks would sit back and try to think I have to recalibrate. I have to go back to the cutting room floor and go back to the drawing board and see what I have to do to get back right. Brock was like, just go back to basics. Everything I had done previously had worked. I'm not going to change that now after one bad game. And
trust the sample size, the large sample size of success, right?
Exactly. And you see what today was. It was a very 28 passing attempts, almost 10 yards per play for him, 2 touchdowns, 124.7 rating. He wasn't sacked at all. It was what you'd call a prototypical Brock Purdy kind of day. Clean, efficient, effective, and then you get the win. That was going back to his drawing board, and it's playing nearly perfect again.
Yeah, and then the Niners' run game was really good as well. And I think I mean, one of the concerns that I had coming into this game, first of all, it was something that you brought up earlier. Logan Ryan starting at safety for Jair Brown. That was a major concern because Jair Brown was your backup. So now you're playing the backup's backup.
Third string safety.
A guy who you just signed off the street a little bit ago and I think played, 12 defensive snaps entering today this season for the 49ers. That was a major question mark. But
not ideal.
I was maybe more worried about the offensive line.
Interesting.
Aaron Banks was activated, and I once I saw the news, I figured he was going to play, but he didn't. He didn't play, so you had Spencer Burford playing. You had John Feliciano playing. The major news the Niners got earlier in the week was Trent Williams was going to play, and he was in there the whole game. But the offensive line, I thought, did a phenomenal job, specifically run blocking. The Niners had lanes to run the ball all game long, and you don't get this kind of workman-like game from the Niners offense. You don't get the time of possession where they possess it for, I think, nearly 38 minutes. You don't get that, Sterling, without a good performance from the offensive line. And, I mean, I was pleasantly surprised by how they played today.
There's still an issue of running right. Like, they were in the red zone today, and they ran right on like a second and maybe second 10, maybe like a second and 8, and they lost 4 yards, and you're like, oh, great. Like, now we're behind the 8 ball. You have to force a pass in, it gets overthrown to Ayuk in the back corner of the end zone, and you're like, all right, like, who's missing their blocks? I think if they're at full strength, their best starting 5 is Williams, Banks, Brendel, Feliciano, then McKivitz. But this is going so far in the future, but that first-round pick needs to be for a right tackle. Like, I like Colton McKivitz. He's a fine swing tackle. It's just, I get he's a bargain bin Mike McGlinchey, and you're okay with that for a year, but we've seen how poorly they've played against the better edge rushers, Alex Highsmith, TJ Watt. Basically, the entire AFC North is like a yikes for everybody. But against the Commanders, who don't have Chase Young, now in San Francisco, don't have Montez Sweat, now with Chicago, they cannot get pressure on the outside. So, yes, the offensive line played better. I just don't think the Commanders were that much of a test for them. Like,
they still got some dudes on the defensive line, though.
But it's a bunch of guys on the interior. And
Deron Payne.
Like, you got guys that can, like, it's so much easier to erase interior defensive linemen than the edge rushers, because when you're an edge rusher, you are containing the edge, but also you can go get sacks, you can drop back, you can go in coverage. Like, when you're on the interior, like, there's a reason why San Francisco is so good at erasing Aaron Donald. Because if he's not an edge rusher, screen passes, quick passes, end arounds, running the football to the outside, like, you can get rid of Jonathan Allen and Deron Payne, who are good players in themselves, but you can erase what the Commanders have on the interior. Had they played a team, I don't know, maybe like the Colts or a team like even the Rams right now, who are actually playing better defensively, I don't think they would have had this kind of performance. I think there would have been a handful of sacks in there, but at the end of the day, 0 sacks. Purdy plays great. You protect your quarterback, who had a stinger last week, who's had 3 stingers so far this year, and now you give him what seems like 2-3 weeks off to get healthy and limit the stingers he may have if he gets hit again.
Yeah, and I think, I mean, it's not like I thought the offensive line was flawless today. Clearly not. But the Niners are kind of in this weird spot where, I mean, Burford is like a starter, but Feliciano's kind of the starter for him now, right? Like, even if Aaron Banks was going to play today and he was active, he just did not play. But if Banks was going to play, Feliciano was going to play for Burford.
Yeah.
Right?
He's the Brunskill this year, I guess, but playing over Burford now instead of vice versa.
Like, Burford has kind of lost his starting job.
As he should have.
Yeah, I mean, he's had a bad season. But I mean, that's part of the reason why you have that already. Ideally, you don't have to play Spencer Burford because he's been so bad. Now you're forced to play him because Aaron Banks active, emergency plays if someone else goes down, whatever the case is. I just thought they were a little bit better than I was expecting. Now, honestly, I was expecting Brock Purdy to be facing a lot more pressure. I didn't think that they were going to be able to run the ball like they were. Elijah Mitchell was very good, and a lot of that was thanks to the offensive line. And I know the run blocking at times has been better than the pass blocking. I just was, I guess, It's not like they played great, but I was expecting less than how they actually played. I thought they were fine.
Is that because of how poorly they played against the Ravens last week?
That's part of it. Yeah. Now, Trent Williams back. Trent Williams back obviously helps a ton. I mean, you can just hand him the left side of the line. You don't need to help him at all, and he'll anchor it, and he'll be fine. It allows you to, focus more on helping everyone else on the right side and in the middle, but I thought they were okay.
It's crazy how, even hampered by a groin injury, how good Trent Williams is.
He just erases dudes.
Like, early in this game, I think he got beat once or twice, and it wasn't that big of a deal, but, even with a groin injury, what is he, a B-plus player still? Maybe an A-minus player? For, if injured, you're an A-minus player still. He's a future Hall of Famer, going to be an All-Pro this year. Been PFF's best graded player the past 2-3 seasons. He is the best left tackle in football. Even injured, you run behind him, he'll carry your offense, and today was another day for Trent. There is a collective of people saying Trent Williams is this team MVP. Today was a day where I would say, Trent today may have been this team's MVP.
The Niners, the move to go from Joe Staley's retirement to Trent Williams, we knew that was going to be big when it happened because Trent Williams has been great every step of his career, and he wanted to get the hell out of Washington as well.
So many ties.
Much like Chase Young, but from Joe Staley...
They upgraded.
To Trent, they upgraded over an all-time franchise great.
Ring of Honor left tackle. Yeah. The best left tackle of my lifetime, not named Larry Allen for 2 years when it came over in the mid-2000s. He defined a left tackle for this team for 10-plus years.
And I don't know, that retirement kind of caught me off guard a little bit when it happened. You could kind of see it coming, but I don't know, I felt like maybe he had another year or two in him.
It was is Joe going to give us another shot, give us one more year? And he didn't. And just the fact that Washington didn't want to trade with Shanahan, and they still swindled him a 3rd and a 5th round pick, right? Or just a 3rd round pick. The amount of swindling John Lynch and Shanahan have done as GM and head coach for Christian McCaffrey, Chase Young so far, Trent Williams, Emmanuel Sanders was a great trade in 2019. Even Jimmy G for a 2nd round pick. I'm sure for a handful of teams, they look back and say, I wouldn't do that. But I guarantee you take 20 other franchises, they'll take Jimmy G in his prime for a 2nd round pick any day of the week.
He got you to a Super Bowl, yeah. That's an easy trade.
And then Gregory's been fine, but he's free. All the moves, if John Lynch doesn't win GM of the Year, Executive of the Year, I don't know who else you give it to. He finds Purdy. Logan Ryan starts and plays fine in his first game in almost an entire season. They're getting all these superstars players together because of the deals they're making. From the top and bottom, San Francisco is just arguably the most well-run organization in the entire league.
They really are, and I think maybe the one thing that didn't happen today that I was kind of hoping was Chase Young getting a sack. Because the Chase Young Washington Commanders relationship hasn't been smooth. Now I know it's different because the team got sold and it feels different around there now. And the previous ownership, of course, I'm not even going to say his name, was just a mess and bad and ugly and not fun to be around by all accounts. Obviously, Chase Young came into this game feeling a little bit extra juice, right? Because you want to go back to the team that one was your first team and you won an AP Rookie of the Year with, but the team that traded you away for a compensatory 3rd round pick. The Niners gave up basically nothing to get him.
Yeah.
And you want to go back there and you want to see, you didn't want me? You didn't want me? I'm one of the best edge rushers in this league. Now, he didn't get a sack. Only 1 sack for the Niners. It was Cleveland Ferrell, which no one would have guessed as the only guy with a sack today for the Niners, but that was the one thing that didn't happen today. I was waiting for the celebration, what the Niners defenders were going to break out if Chase Young got a sack. How were they going to celebrate that occasion? Unfortunately, it didn't happen. One of the few things that we didn't get to see from the Niners today.
Chase Young feels like that player that, he has 7.5 sacks this year, but only, I believe, one of them has come in a Niners jersey. He really hasn't put up the numbers you would expect from a Chase Young level name, but it feels like his impact is more of that of an interior guy where you're he takes up double teams, frees up Bosa, Hargrave, Armstead because he's the other person they have to account for, but he really hasn't put up numbers. He just feels like someone you plug in and say, free up the other 3 guys we have who are elite or borderline elite players to get them the sacks. Like Bosa has, 10.5 sacks this year? I thought he had one today.
I thought he had one earlier.
Early in the game. I guess they didn't count that, or I don't know. But, it just feels like Chase Young is just, also there. And it's like, when that level name is also there, it means you have one of the best defensive lines in the league. But on the YouTube chat brought to you by First NorCal Credit Union, a handful of people are saying that San Francisco has no pass rush. And I'm sitting back saying, maybe they didn't get sacks, but what do you mean they didn't have pass rush? I guarantee you tomorrow it's going to say San Francisco 1 sack, 35 pressures. They were in the backfield all game long. They just couldn't get the sacks.
Chase Young has 2.5 sacks with the Niners, by the way. He had that one. He had half a sack in his debut against Jacksonville.
Okay.
He had a sack the next week against Tampa. Didn't have a sack today, but had half a sack each of the last 2 games before today, so Arizona and Baltimore. Okay. So 2.5 sacks. But you're right. I mean, he hasn't been getting home as often as he was when he was with the Commanders. And this is kind of the conversation that we were having early in the season, even during the Niners' 5-game win streak, specifically during the 3-game losing streak. And it was more centered around Nick Bosa. Nick, at some point, I know you're getting pressures, buddy, but you're going to have to get the quarterback. You're going to have to start sacking him. Now, to Bosa's credit, he has, and it kind of switched after the bye. And that's when the Niners went on that run. They won 6 in a row. Now they've won 7 out of 8 since the bye. But I feel like the conversation that we were having about Nick Bosa kind of now is about the whole defensive line. It hasn't been bad by any stretch of the imagination, and I think I'm more in agreement with you as opposed to that conversation going on to the YouTube chat. Still love you, though, YouTubers, but at some point the Niners are going to have to a little bit more consistently get home to the quarterback and finish off those pressures. The pressures are still good. I mean, it's leading to interceptions. Right. You get the quarterback off balance. Maybe he throws an incompletion when the receiver was open. It's still having a positive impact, but sacks really just turn the tide of a game, and the Niners haven't been getting home as often as you might want.
I mean, they had 6 quarterback hits today. That's...
But 1 sack, Sterling.
Ugh.
And it wasn't even really a quarterback hit. Sam Howell just ran out of bounds.
Which makes me wonder, the ESPN box score, I remember Nick Bosa getting a sack today.
I think it must have been, I remember it too. I think it was very close to being back at the line of scrimmage, so maybe they just ruled that Howell got back to the line, and it's just a tackle and not a sack. That would be my guess.
They're a bunch of liars.
I'd have to go back through the play-by-play, but...
It definitely felt like... Unless my eyes are deceiving me, it certainly looked like Nick Bosa got a sack because the announcer even said, he has 11.5 now, or he's up towards 10.5 now. He even listed the sack total next to his name.
Yeah. I don't know.
Whatever.
He got cheated out of a sack.
They hate Nick Bosa. Collusion.
Yeah, they're trying to get the Defensive Player of the Year award to Myles Garrett instead of Nick Bosa.
Micah Parsons.
Right? Mike is not winning it.
Who is, though? Is it Myles Garrett?
I think it's got to be.
Or is it the guy from Deron Bland? Is that who it is from Dallas?
I don't think anyone in Dallas is getting it.
It's because they stink. It's because a bunch of frauds. A bunch of fakers. How do you barely beat the Lions? I know today Cowboy fans are like, beat Detroit last night. You got lucky. Complete escape with the win. It feels like every team is teetering on almost disaster every single week. It's they'll beat the Giants, they'll beat the Cardinals if you aren't Philadelphia. But it feels like everybody but San Francisco kind of teeters every single week on almost losing.
Myles Garrett and Micah Parsons are basically even money, and they're tied.
The odds?
So they're both plus 100. So bet 100, win 100 on either of those guys right now, at least from what I'm seeing. That's before today.
You know who I'd pick?
Who?
Isaiah Oliver.
Oh, God.
He had a tackle today that on the last play of the game.
Well, what's crazy is the Niners are running Isaiah Oliver at safety now because they got injuries now at safety. Gross. They have injuries for a while, and they have completely moved off of Isaiah Oliver as their nickel corner. He was getting run in practice this week, the last couple of weeks, at safety, Sterling.
You know what frustrates me is that when they lost Jimmy Ward, and we were all trying to figure out who's going to replace him. You're going to bring someone in. You're going to move somebody inside, which ended up happening with Lenore. When they signed Oliver, I was like, really? Then I got talked into it. Then I watched him in practice and was like, oh, okay, he's actually playing pretty well. There was no competition in camp. And then out of nowhere, it's like, yeah, might not start. And you're like, what? Like, no one's been playing nickel but him. What's going on? And then you get into the season and he struggles and you're like, oh, like, this is the guy you replace one of the best nickel/safeties with? Jimmy Ward, I say, like, what is going on? And now you're almost praying he never sees the field. Because when he does, which
bad things
today
happen.
isn't an example of that, but it's like he's going to get toast. Like, freaking burnt toast. Please, just don't play him. Special teams only.
Was his tackle today on special teams? It had to be, right?
No, it was a 4th down play on Washington's last drive.
Oh, all right.
Which doesn't count. But.
Yeah. He's only in there at the end when the game was already decided.
Garbage time.
That's how the Niners feel about Isaiah Oliver right now, and it's not good. All right, time for a break here on Overtime. We still got more time for your calls. Give us a call, 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line. I'm keeping an eye on the text there. The 510 says no DPOI for Fred Warner. Unfortunately, he's not going to win the award, although he has been very good once again this season. He should be an all-pro, as he always is. But 510, sorry about that. No DPOI for Fred Warner. I'm also keeping an eye on the YouTube chat, youtube.com/957thegame. More overtime coming up on the other side. The Niners are the 1 seed in the NFC. Let's celebrate. More OT next on 95.7 The Game.
Prescriptions require an online consultation with a healthcare provider who will determine if appropriate. Restrictions apply. See website for details and important safety information. Subscription required. Price varies based on product and subscription plan.
Hey guys, did you know there's a generic...
and lots of work to be done. No place to hang out or washing.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Avenue, and then we'll take it higher. Sorry to the YouTube viewers who are only hearing me sing right now, but Electric Avenue by Eddie Grant. For whatever reason, it's a Sterling Bennett favorite, and he'll play this once.
This is how you celebrate a number 1 seed, Mark.
Didn't play it last week because when he's feeling a little down, he doesn't play the Eddie Grant classic.
I just eat a whole loaf of bread myself. That's all I do. On to Electric Avenue. And let it take it high.
Niners are the 1 seed.
We can't get any higher now, Mark. Number 1 seed. It's as high as we can go. Oh, it feels so good.
It does feel good. Woo. Welcome back to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Randy and Sterling Bennett with you. We've got an hour left here with you, and we want to hear from you. 888-957-9570. That's also the Comcast Business text line and the YouTube chat. Keeping an eye on that, as always, with you here on Overtime. Alexa, Pierce, Drewski, shout out to all you YouTubers here
Drewski?
keeping up
Like
with
the
us.
Drewski?
Not the Drewski. At least I don't think it's the Drewski.
I hope it's the Drewski.
I think he spells it differently. This Drewski is a Drewskee. So
too many E's,
I think
man.
It's a different
You almost
Drewski.
had me. You almost tricked me.
But anyway, shout out to all the YouTubers. YouTube.com/957 The Game. Again, 888-957-9570. We've got more sound to get into. Fred Warner has talked. Brandon Ayuk has talked. We got a little bit more from Purdy to hear as well. But Sterling, we're a couple hours in here to Overtime, and we've kept our focus as much as we can on this game itself. But, I mean, let's be real. This was a game the Niners were favored by 14 points. The Commanders are really only playing for pride at this point. They're likely going to fire Ron Rivera.
Good, he stinks.
That's disrespectful.
No. He's a bad coach. He had 1 good year. Great person. Hope he remains healthy. I get it. Battled cancer.
A cancer survivor.
I want him to live. But he's a bad coach. Like, they have new ownership. Move on. Restart.
And they're going to. And
they should.
All I'm saying is they have really nothing to play for. This was a game that the Niners should win by, like, as many points as they won by.
Almost 20.
They were favored by 14, and they ultimately end up winning this game by 17 points. They covered what they were supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So my question to you becomes, is the Niners are now officially the number 1 seed in the NFC. Even before this week, before the Cowboys beat the Lions but should have lost, and even before the Eagles lost to the Arizona Cardinals, it felt like the NFC, and even after what happened last week to the Niners, it felt like the NFC was like the Niners, a big gap, and then everybody else.
Right.
And I feel like that feeling is only like amplified this week after what has happened. Like, the Lions were really competitive with the Cowboys. The Cowboys were at home where they're really good. The Cowboys won, but they should have lost. And the Eagles just an absolute embarrassment against the Cardinals. And they've now lost what, like 3 of 4? No, 4 of 5?
I don't know.
They lost to the Niners, they lost to the Cowboys, they lost to the Seahawks, and now they lost to the Cardinals. They've lost 4 of their last 5 games. So my question to you, Sterling, and to all of the listeners, 888-957-9570, what team in the NFC are you most fearful of? Are you most afraid of? Because it feels like the gap between the Niners and everybody else has never been wider. I feel like Niners fans' confidence, despite what happened on Christmas night, is at an all-time high. And part of it is because, of course, your team is great. The Niners are very good, the most talented team in the NFL, probably. But it's also because everyone else in the NFC, they don't look very good.
It does feel like there is this kind of superiority complex, and rightfully so, where the NFC in San Francisco really, like, no one in the NFC should scare us. We've scored 42 against the Cowboys, scored 42 against the Eagles, and while we haven't played the Lions yet, we've also beaten Tampa Bay pretty badly. We've beaten Seattle twice so far this year. We've beaten the Rams once this year. Now, I know that you may think the Rams are the one team that might scare San Francisco or might worry you come playoff time. And okay, like NFC West team, that playoff game then becomes a third divisional game. It's always tough to beat the same team 3 times this year. I get it, right? That was the big conversation against Seattle last year of like, well, you're playing a third team in a row. It's hard to do that. Now,
to be fair, that was a game, and the Niners were down in that game.
And they ended up putting up, 40 points against Seattle.
It ended up not being close at the end.
Now, the Rams, I think, are a much better team than Seattle was last year and this year by a wide margin because they have a much better quarterback, better weapons, better ground game. But I still think of any team in the NFC, I think it has to be Detroit.
That kind of surprised me.
And it's not because of Jared Goff, your favorite MVP dark horse candidate. I think their run defense has it's come alive. Aiden Hutchinson's having a great season. They're getting guys healthy again with Chauncey Gardner-Johnson, who him and Debo, I hope they play each other because they don't like each other on Twitter or X. I just think their run defense, while, yes, you have Christian McCaffrey, and that can change a game, certainly, I just think what they're able to do in stopping players like Tony Pollard and Kenneth Walker and Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, like, there's just, like, it just makes your offense one-dimensional. And for a team like San Francisco, yes, Brock Purdy, MVP candidate, you should be able to beat the Lions' passing defense because it's so bad. Like, if Dak can do it, Purdy should be able to do it, right? But they should have beat the Cowboys last night, or at least tied them. Like, that should have been an overtime game, and I get Dan Campbell's risky, and that's the thing is, like, run defense is good, but Dan Campbell's a wild card, too. 4th and 6, your own 45, we're going for it, and you're like, man, like, and the way our defense is played in certain weeks, it's like Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery, like, that team would scare me.
Yeah, the other thing about the Lions, like in a playoff setting, do you trust them? Because, I mean, this is
a good point.
Jared Goff has been to the Super Bowl, but it's kind of similar in the Jimmy Garoppolo like fashion where it's like, okay, but were you the reason you went to the Super Bowl? Like, no, not really. That team was just great around you. So do you trust a young team whose best players have never been to the playoffs before, like Amon-Ra St. Brown, David Montgomery? Did he ever get to the playoffs? Not with the Bears. I don't think he's been.
Well, was he there in the Trubisky against the Saints wildcard year where he won the MVP?
I don't think so.
He may have been. Or
I don't remember.
Or was he a 2020 draft pick?
Maybe he was a rookie that year. Well, regardless, doesn't have a lot of experience. Who else? I mean, Aiden Hutchinson on the defensive line is in his second year. Penei Sewell, one of the stars of the offensive line.
Yeah.
Go Ducks. He hasn't been to the postseason at all. So maybe there's a part of you who's like, all right, you get him in the playoffs in a big environment. You're at home.
Lights get too bright.
Maybe that's what happens. But I mean, I feel like the Lions are also in a situation where they kind of remind me a little bit, and it's nowhere near as dominant as the Eagles from last year in the sense that they have a dominant offensive line. Like, you could argue the best offensive line in the NFL.
Ragnow, Decker.
And Penei Sewell, who I already shouted out. And then you talked about the defensive line and how their ability to just shut down opposing rushing attacks. Like, they control both lines of scrimmage in every game that they play. And in the postseason, that is a really scary and difficult thing to go up against. So that wasn't going to be my answer coming into this conversation, but you might have convinced me, despite the fact that, you know, they are young and you might be able to rattle them in the postseason. Although I do feel like Dan Campbell and the way that he coaches and the kind of guy he is, maybe his team is less susceptible to that sort of thing than other younger teams.
Yeah.
But yeah, those lines, offensive and defensive, they're legit. They're scary.
So I know a lot of people dislike Dan Campbell. He's a meathead. He's a big knucklehead. He gives me Liver King vibes. You know what that is?
Yes.
Like, he just like eats like bull testicles and like, oh, I'm gonna go get jacked and take my steroids, have my ab implants. Like, living life just so incorrectly.
That guy claimed that he was clean, right? That he
like,
wasn't on steroids.
I'm a natty.
Yeah,
like, brother,
no chance.
No, you're not. Like, and I do like Dan Campbell. Like,
I love Dan Campbell. He's so awesome.
Like, that fits the NFL that I like, where it's just like he came from an era where is smash mouth football. He gonna knock your head off, and I do like that character within my NFL. Like, The NFL needs somebody like Dan Campbell, and he has been so good for the Detroit Lions, the organization. Like, that move was heavily criticized. Like, when I heard it, I was like, who the heck? Like, former Saints player Dan Campbell, like, that's who's the coach. And to their credit, like, they stuck by him. Like, they weren't good for a handful of years. Trading Matthew Stafford away was like, what's going on? Like, now, in retrospect, they are the reason why we lost in the playoff game against the Rams.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Detroit.
Yeah, so we do have some beef that maybe is unsaid, but it's there. But I just think that, like, the Lions have this almost like, you know when, like, there's a person that has kind of dumb strength? Like, you have no idea how strong you actually are.
Uh-huh.
Like, you're not jacked. Like, you're just like a big, just kind of a dolt of a person, but you are so strong. That's kind of how the Lions are to me, where you're like, you don't really get how good you actually are. Like, you're feisty, but, like, you're kind of dumb strong. They're kind of dumb strong to me. Like, you're just a big meathead, but you can cause some damage.
Well, it's kind of like a young team that hasn't, like, fully realized their potential yet. Like, you can see it, like,
They're getting there.
A couple years down the road, like, you're going to be a legitimate force to be reckoned with.
It's kind of how the Jaguars were last year.
Yeah, a little bit.
But
I feel a little bit more confident in the Lions than I did in the Jaguars last year.
More complete,
but
sure.
Now that they did, the Chargers chargered is what happened. Can credit the Jaguars, but I mean, it was the Chargers charging last year. What was it, like 28-3? Or no, not that was the.
All I know is Evan Giddings cried, and I feel bad.
Yeah, there's no chance he's listening to us right now, so we can get that out of the way.
He'll podcast us.
No, he won't. I think he's down in Southern California still, celebrating New Year's. I think he's back Tuesday? I don't know. We'll see. Tune in to Steiny Guru on Tuesday and find out if Evan's back or not. I think he will be.
Pierce Evans in the YouTube chat says, not going to happen, but he would love a Cleveland and Detroit Super Bowl.
I don't know if the NFL would, but that would be a really fun matchup.
That would be as bad as this year's World Series. Like, probably better because the NFL always reigns supreme, but like a Joe Flacco-led Browns, just horrifying defense to play against meathead Dan Campbell and his bull testicles he eats in the morning for breakfast for cereal.
I'll just tell you, I mean, Dan Campbell, Super Bowl, like, media day and that whole week leading up, oh my God.
He
would become a worldwide sensation.
Oh, man.
You put him in front of a camera for a whole week.
You know what?
The content that would come out of that, Sterling?
I would love Ravens versus Lions if it is in San Francisco. That'd be really fun.
If it is in San Francisco?
No, like if it was in San Francisco.
Oh, if it was not,
I would love it to be
see.
Ravens versus Lions.
I see.
You get John Harbaugh, the vet, Lamar Jackson, potential MVP, and you got meathead Dan Campbell and that ferocious, feisty young Lions defense out there doing some things. It'd be fun.
That would be fun. Okay, so that's the case for the Lions. It's interesting that we're not talking about the Eagles or the Cowboys at all. I mean, the Cowboys.
I want to, but
the Cowboys. I think the Cowboys are a fine football team. Now, they have issues, big-time issues. They're nowhere near as good away from home. And if they are to meet the Niners, we know it's going to be in Santa Clara. So that almost kind of immediately eliminates them. But also the Niners specifically, just like they have the soul of the Cowboys in their hand. Like it feels like the Cowboys can't get over a mental block with the 49ers. So for me, the Cowboys are not even on like my radar in terms of teams the Niners should fear. And then you think about the Eagles and, I mean, think about the 42-19 win. Like, that's one thing. The Eagles have lost to the Seahawks.
Well,
they've lost to the Cardinals.
They lost to the Drew Lock Seahawks.
They lost to the Drew Lock Seahawks, and they lost to the Cardinals. How do you explain that? Like, is this a team that maybe you still say, all right, when they play their A game, maybe they're the second best team in the NFC?
I'd agree with that.
Maybe you could still say that. But do you have any confidence that they're going to play their A game again? Like, they haven't played their A game in like a month and a half now.
We'll take it further. And I think this kind of goes back to your point of why the Rams might be so dangerous. I think the Rams could beat the Cowboys. I think the Rams could beat the Eagles. I think when you look at who's actually the three best teams in the NFC, I think you have San Francisco being the number one. Detroit's number two, then there's a real conversation for as
take your pick.
Hot as the Rams are now, winning 5 of their last 6, you could pick the Rams. And I think Matthew Stafford, Cooper Kupp, Puka Nacua, Williams, McVay, like they could go into Philadelphia and put up 30 against Philadelphia.
That offense quietly, not really that quietly, they got some weapons.
Yeah.
They're kind of like the Niners light in terms of their weapons.
Yeah,
Puka Nacua as a rookie wide receiver, setting rookie wide receiver records, rewriting the history books. We know that Cooper Kupp is one of the greatest receivers in the NFL, and he's been in and out of the lineup again this year. But if he's healthy, that's an incredible 1-2 punch hit receiver. Kyron Williams, who no one really knew about to begin the season, he's just a touchdown machine.
Yeah.
Like that, and you got Matthew Stafford, as you said, probably a Hall of Fame quarterback. Like that is one of the best foursome of offensive players in the NFL.
It's a different system, but they remind me a lot of the Steelers circa 2016. A.J. Brown, Antonio Brown, Le'Veon Bell, Juju Smith-Schuster. They just have weapons everywhere now.
And you got an old, aging Hall of Fame quarterback?
Where, while Stafford's probably a little more mobile than Big Ben was at that point, and probably has a healthier arm despite the injury he had last year, it just feels like the Rams may be the most dangerous team not locked into a top 4 seed in the NFC, including Philadelphia.
They're the team that if you end up being the 2 seed, you end up being the 3 seed. If you're the Lions or whoever wins the NFC East, you hope you don't match up with the Rams in the first round. You do not want to see the Rams in the first round.
But take it further. If you're San Francisco, let's say the cards fall where they do and the Rams beat Philadelphia or beat the Cowboys, whoever it is, right? Are you too bummed to play the Rams? You're obviously going to get up for that game. It's a playoff game. You're playing the Rams for the 3rd time this year. You have a chance to do to them what they did to you 2 years ago. Come to your place. They get hot late in the year, 2021. You're feeling yourself. Get in the playoffs.
Maybe they get into the playoffs or they help their seeding only by winning in your place, week 18 like the Niners did 2 years ago.
And then you play them in the playoffs, knock them out, and go on to win the championship or go on to win Super Bowl. San Francisco and the Rams have so much history, especially Shanahan-McVay's era here. You go back even to mid-2000s, the Gore, Steven Jackson conversations were there of who's the best running back in the NFC.
Yeah.
You go back even further, right? They're always tied together in some way. I feel like playing the Rams might be, in a way, the Niners' biggest test remaining if they get to the playoffs, though. Look at the AFC. The only teams that worry me in the AFC truly are the Ravens and the Browns. And I don't think the Browns are skating by on Joe Flacco, just not giving a you-know-what and throwing that thing into double coverage, triple coverage, and good for him.
They're about to dominate end-of-season awards, by the way.
As they should.
Joe Flacco is probably going to win Comeback Player of the Year for playing the final 6 games of the season.
Over DeMar Hamlin, who almost died.
Maybe.
Who did die for a little bit. But, I'm not scared. I'm really not scared of Kansas City. I'm not really scared of Buffalo.
I'm scared of Buffalo.
They almost lost to the Patriots today. There's so many inconsistencies and so many what you'd want to call contenders this year. And San Francisco has theirs as well. Defensive line, run defense isn't that great. You're banged up in the secondary. The offense can't come from behind. There are some questions to be had, but I just think San Francisco at their A game is so much better than everybody else, maybe outside of the Ravens and Browns, that I think it really is a 3-4 team race for the Super Bowl, and 3 of those teams might be in the AFC.
They might be. And I think the fact that this is even in a conversation that we can make an argument for the Lions, you can make an argument for the Rams. Neither of us had made the argument, but I would listen to arguments about the Eagles, less so about the Cowboys. But I would consider those arguments, right?
Number 3 seed, no one cares about them. It's pretty crazy.
The fact that this is the way this conversation goes, I think you're right. It signals and it tells you that the NFC is the 49ers to lose.
Yeah.
We know this. They're the number 1 seed. If the Niners are not going to the Super Bowl, someone came into Santa Clara and beat them. But it just feels like things are setting up for the 49ers not to have their way and not to have a cakewalk, but it just feels like, and this is something you said, earlier in the show, like things are breaking their way at the moment. And I mean, things went their way a little bit at the end of last season. The Vikings fell off, which allowed the Niners to sneak up to the 2 seed. Now that ended up not really mattering because the Vikings got upset. Anyway, Daniel Jones strikes again.
Isaiah Hodgins.
But the Eagles lost a couple of games because Jalen Hurts got hurt, but you weren't able to catch them for the number 1 seed, so you were the 2 seed. Things didn't totally break your way that year. And then, of course, you had the injuries in the postseason, and we know the whole deal. And not to mention, last regular season was not kind to you, despite the fact that you were one of the better teams in the NFL. You lost multiple quarterbacks due to injuries.
Yeah.
2 years ago, you dealt with injuries to your quarterback as well, and you had to rattle off wins, a lot of them towards the end of the season, just to make the playoffs. Like, there's a different feeling. I mean, we're on the air after a Week 17 win against the Commanders on the road in D.C., and we can't help but think about the path to the Super Bowl. Like, that's just how good this team is and how it feels like everything that you could hope to go their way. Injuries on their end is the one thing that they got to, figure out, and they got to get healthy, but everything else just seems to really be breaking their way at the moment.
Well, also, take it even further than that, because if you're San Francisco, you're sitting back here looking at it, and you have San Francisco number 1 seed, okay, bye week. As it stands today, it would be Tampa Bay versus Philadelphia. Now, I would like to think the Philadelphia Eagles win that game, but don't forget, Tampa Bay played them tough earlier this year. Now, again, I'd still pick Philadelphia, but that's not going to be a cakewalk for the Eagles.
That would be in Tampa.
Right. Then you have the Lions versus the Rams in Detroit. That can go either way. Then you have Dallas versus Seattle, and the way Dallas is playing, I would not be shocked if Seattle wins that game.
They just played in Dallas a month ago, and I mean, Dallas won, but Seattle was there step for step. DK Metcalf won crazy in that game.
3 touchdowns. And so, if that's the case, and let's say things fall your way, it would be Niners versus Seattle in San Francisco again. So Niners versus Seattle in San Francisco, in Santa Clara. Then it would be, let's say, the Rams win, and let's say the Bucs win. And it'd be Bucs versus Rams. You're probably going to beat Seattle. Then you have Rams-Niners NFC Championship game.
It's just an all NFC West path to the Super Bowl for the 49ers. Is that what you're laying out?
I mean, and if you're San Francisco, why wouldn't you want that? You've proven to be able to beat these teams over and over and over again. The only thing I think and we'll have to go through after Week 17 is over with, is that could the Rams go up or down in the seeding?
Yeah.
How is it like there is a chance that if Seattle wins today, I believe, and the Rams lose against us next weekend, they can swap places.
Seattle has the head-to-head over the Rams.
Right, so there's a chance that it's Rams and Dallas if Dallas holds on to the 2 seed. And if the Rams beat Dallas, we're playing the Rams in Levi Stadium just 3 weeks away.
There's a lot of movement still to come, of course, in this NFL season. The Niners are the number 1 seed. That's what we know for sure. Everything else is up in the air. It seems likely that the Lions will be the 3, but that's still not confirmed yet either. Still a lot to sort through here as the NFL regular season comes to a close in a week. All right, time for one final break here on Overtime. When we come back, we'll wrap things up with one final segment. We've got to hand out game balls at the end. Brock Purdy is likely not going to win MVP, but he did set a record today, a Niners franchise record, and the Niners team as a whole also did something that very few other teams in the NFL have ever done. I'll tell you what that is coming up on the other side as Overtime continues. One more segment next. It's Grandy and Sterling with you right here on 95.7 The Game.
Boy, am I glad to be done with my holiday shopping.
Oh, I know.
And now I just want to relax.
Me too. Well, except there's one more story.
Talk about beautiful throw. This is immaculate. You just can't, you couldn't walk down there and hand it to him any better than that. And for all those people who say, hey, Brock Purdy is a game manager, I present that play right there. George, I can't even see you. I can't even look at you right now.
Now back to Overtime with Sterling Bennett and Mark Grandy on 95.7 The Game.
Yeah, ditto. Adam Amin and Mark Schlereth calling a Brock Purdy dime down the right sideline to Brandon Ayuk. That set up the Brandon Ayuk touchdown where Brock Purdy rolled to the right, found some extra time, and then fired back across his body after directing Ayuk into space and went for a touchdown. Brock Purdy was showing off on that drive, and that throw to Ayuk down the right sideline was just picture perfect. That was from Fox, Adam Amin, and Mark Schlereth again. Welcome back to Overtime here on 95.7 The Game. Mark Grandy and Sterling Bennett with you. We've got a little more than 20 minutes left with you, so if you want to get in, you can shoot us a text on the Comcast Business text line, 888-957-9570. And again, I'm keeping an eye on our YouTube chat, youtube.com/957 The Game. Happy New Year to everyone out there. Thanks for spending your New Year's Eve afternoon with us. Also, a shout out to Isaac Cox on our YouTube chat. Isaac says, hope you're well. I'm out in New Jersey. Can I get a shout out? Happy New Year. Yes, you can, Isaac. Happy New Year. Hope you're doing well.
Does he know Mitch?
Mitch in New Jersey?
Does he know Mitch in New Jersey?
Isaac, do you know Mitch?
You better.
If so, you got to give us a call because that will be wild. We hear from Mitch every overtime. We love hearing from him. And you big Niner fan out there on the East Coast. And Isaac, maybe another one.
Maybe?
Yeah.
So Mark Schlereth said it was an immaculate throw. So I have a nickname for it.
Okay, give it to me.
Can I call it the Immaculate Perception?
Why perception?
Well, Brock Purdy, come on, man. You got to keep up with these things.
Because of the perception of Brock Purdy?
I'm just trying to make puns, man. We're trying to have a good time here.
I mean, I don't.
They have the immaculate reception.
Yeah, I get that.
Okay, the immaculate
I'm not
perception.
A fool. I don't get how perception fits. That's all.
It's just words, Mark. They mean nothing. We're just putting Purdy in front of something, and Purdy good perception, whatever it is.
You want to know what does mean something?
Oh,
that Brock Purdy is the Niners single-season all-time passing yards leader.
So what you're saying is he's the greatest quarterback of all time?
Maybe not quite.
So what you're saying is he should be the MVP?
That's Lamar Jackson.
So what you're saying is he's a top 5 quarterback in the league right now?
Yes.
Oh, so what you're saying is he's elite?
I think so.
Oh, that's the first time all year. That's the first time
it took
all year.
till week 17.
I've been waiting for it. Mark Grandy, with a C, not a K, has finally said Brock Purdy is an elite quarterback.
I feel like I said this a few weeks ago.
No. I've been sitting here for 17 weeks, doom and gloom, was on vacation at Disneyland, hurt my back, and was like, you know what, help me if Mark would call Brock Purdy an elite quarterback. And I'm healed.
You're welcome.
It's the immaculate Markception. I'm finally healed.
I like that one better.
Okay.
Yeah. But yeah, Brock Purdy, more passing yards than any single season in Niners history, more than Steve Young, more than Joe Montana, more than Jeff Garcia. He stands alone, the most prolific passing season in Niners franchise history. Let that sink in. A second-year quarterback drafted with the last pick in the draft. My God. This story is... Like, imagine if this guy runs through the playoffs and gets to the Super Bowl and, God forbid, wins it. Like, this is the craziest story in sports. It is so incredibly wild what this man is doing.
And it's weird, too, because, like, he would technically be a bigger underdog than Tom Brady ever was.
Yes.
Tom Brady, Michigan, starting quarterback there, gets picked in the 6th round. I
want to say
199.
I forget. I want to say 5th, but
Purdy
I'm probably wrong.
Goes to Iowa, which is a fine school, nothing against it, and then gets picked dead last, albeit will be making more money than Tom Brady was.
You were right, 6th round.
Okay. Like, it's like this. The story of Brock Purdy, we've seen so many other quarterbacks that aren't supposed to be there. Kurt Warner, bagging groceries, bang. Greatest show on turf, right? But, like, the Brock Purdy story, just, like, Kurt Warner looks like a quarterback. Like, does that make sense? Like, he looks like he's got the square chin. He's a bigger guy. Purdy's a smaller guy. JCPenney catalog. Like, it just seems like such an unexpected superstar, which makes for the best kind of superstar there is.
Mm-hmm.
Biggest underdog in maybe all of sports right now. Like, it's Brock Purdy, like, it's just awesome. Like, I know if you're a different fan base, you want to discredit him. You're like, oh, Brock Purdy, whatever. But, like, being a fan of this team and the Niners, like, I don't know how people dislike Brock Purdy still. He's a great guy. It's a great story, and he's playing great football.
Yeah, and it's the fact that this dude was Mr. Irrelevant, like, everything is just icing on the cake at this point. Yet there's like this crazy, difficult, high standard that he gets held to. And I get it. He's the quarterback of a team that wants to win a Super Bowl. Like, you will be held to a higher standard than, say, Bryce Young, even though Bryce Young was the first overall pick, because he's playing on an organization that has no direction, that has not a ton of talent, and that is just, frankly, really bad. Like, it's a little bit different. But also, like, expectations matter. And the expectations for Brock Purdy was that he's probably not ever going to even see the field. He's probably not even going to make the team.
Yeah.
And now he's one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. He is quarterbacking one of the best teams in the NFL. And he is probably, I haven't looked today, I'm not sure it's been updated yet. He's certainly the odds-on favorite to win the NFC. I'm not sure if the Ravens jumped the Niners to be the odds-on favorite to win it all, but he's one of the favorites to win the Super Bowl, and he wasn't even expected to touch the football in a regular season game in his life. Like, this is the most wild story that the NFL has seen in such a long time, yet we still hold Brock Purdy to this incredibly high standard. it's really not fair to the guy because of what he had to overcome to even get here in the first place.
But you know what's crazy, though? It does feel like he holds himself to that standard, too.
He does.
Where,
just point to last week, like how he reacted to the loss.
Exactly. Like, even in that loss, when the world's falling down, you're not going to win, it's crumbling, we're going to lose this game. Brock Purdy goes to Shanahan and is like, hey, I want to play. And Shanahan's like, sit down. Like, we're not risking losing you. But that's who Brock Purdy is. He's like, hey, like, I'm going to either sink or swim with the ship. Like, this is my team. And go back to when they cut Nate Sudfeld to keep him.
That was guaranteed money.
I said, what are we doing? Like, knowing not much about Brock Purdy, at least not thinking he can be this, right? Like, watching him in college, there were some glimpses of this. It was not, like, if he was doing this at Iowa, first-round pick, like, instantly.
Iowa State, come on, get it right.
Whatever. Cyclones, fine.
And not the Hawkeyes.
Sorry, George Kittle. But, like, when they cut Nate Sudfeld to keep him, there was a collective, like, okay, what are we doing? Like, who else you're bringing in?
Yep.
And then it again takes them 13 weeks to get a chance to play, really, and it was almost like it was the best thing ever for this team. Like, I believe Shanahan had said, like, in practice, he was playing like the best quarterback on the field, even with Jimmy, with Trey out there, and Shanahan was like, we can't play him over these guys. We'll get fired.
Yes.
But in reality, they knew from the very beginning that
they felt like he might have been the best option, even though they knew they couldn't play him.
Exactly. And, the whole Trey Lance story, the whole Jimmy G's here, he's not like, there was so much in the way of Brock. It took so much to move that he swam through all that, fought through all that to become, at this moment, of those three quarterbacks, the best so far. And none of them likely are ever going to reach those career heights he already has.
Yep, and no quarterback in Niners franchise history has thrown for more yards in a single season than Brock Purdy. He did it in 16 games, by the way, which is also what Jeff Garcia, who previously held the record, did it in. So no asterisk here. He did not need the extra 17th game to get it done. Brock Purdy is the Niners' all-time single-season passing yards record holder. Some other history today for the 49ers, Sterling. George Kittle had an 18-yard catch in the second quarter. It put him over 1,000 scrimmage yards. It also put him over 1,000 receiving yards, but I'm focusing here specifically on scrimmage yards. He joined McCaffrey, Ayuk, and Debo.
There you go.
All over 1,000 yards from scrimmage this season. Just the fourth time in NFL history that a team has had four players on the same team all go over 1,000 yards from scrimmage. The 1989 Washington, not Commanders, before they changed their name. The 1995 Atlanta Falcons and the 2004 Colts, and now the 2023 49ers, the only teams in NFL history, Sterling, with four players over 1,000 yards from scrimmage in a single season.
Wow. I mean, it's so weird to think that this offense, I think Niner fans believe in the offense more than the defense. And
yes,
I think they have every right to, and I think I'm one of them, where this offense has not just so much weaponry, it's how they utilize it. Like, Kyle Juszczyk today is making plays, getting first down.
He should have had a touchdown today.
Right, like, and that's what I mean is, like, guys, the fullbacks are making plays in the offense, where in a league that doesn't utilize fullbacks outside of San Francisco and the Vikings and the Ravens, San Francisco has kind of made the fullback a position again, or kept it alive at least. Well, Juszczyk has, 7 Pro Bowls in a row? He might be a Hall of Famer for all we know. Like, who knows? And so for them, it's hard to wrap your mind around just how good they are in the moment. Like, you can look back at history, Jerry Rice, Montana, Young, like, those were the all-time greats. Like, we are watching an all-time great offense. And it's hard to recognize that sometimes, but, like, when you sit back and think about it, like, we're witnessing history. Whether they win it or lose it all, like, we're witnessing the greatest Niners offense in the last 35 years. And that's including teams that had Kaepernick at his prime, Anquan Bolden, Frank Gore, this team's greatest running back ever. Vernon Davis, arguably this organization's best tight end ever. Jeff Garcia, Owens, Rice, like this organization has the greatest player in NFL history, arguably the greatest quarterback in NFL history, has some of the greatest defensive players in the league. And right now, this offense, this team is playing better than all of them were collectively.
Yeah, it's crazy. In addition to George Kittle going over 1,000 yards from scrimmage, also over 1,000 yards receiving, joining Brandon Ayuk in the 1K club this year.
There you go.
Can you name the last Niners receiving duo to each have over 1,000 yards in a single season? Or give me the year. Either the players or the year. See if you can.
So, tight end and receivers combined?
It could be a tight end, yes.
My heart wants to say it was Anquan and Vernon Davis.
That is incorrect.
Okay. So it must have been, was it T.O. under Jerry Rice? Like 2000?
It was 1998.
Okay.
T.O. and Jerry Rice, the last Niners receiving duo, or just duo, to have over 1,000 receiving yards in a season.
Crazy.
Until this year, George Kittle and Brandon Ayuk. And Deebo Samuel, probably not going to do it now because he's likely not going to play, at least not a lot. He would need a really good game week 18 to join them over 1,000 receiving yards.
Who knows?
Who knows if he even plays. If he does play, he'll probably go off. That's what he does against the Rams. But first pair of Niners players to have over 1,000 receiving yards in the same season since two of the greatest wide receivers of all time.
Man. And it's funny because the way they utilize Kittle, it feels like it comes in spurts of like he's there for a 3-touchdown game against Dallas.
It doesn't feel like he has 1,000 yards this year.
Then
does
there's
it?
nothing after that for like a month, and all of a sudden it's 125 yards and 2 more touchdowns, and you're like, Kittle has had like 7 good games, which could equate to 1,000 yards, but it feels like he's kind of not been a factor in a lot of games. But it's like 50 yards here, 60 yards there, 45 yards here, and it just adds up to like, oh, like he's an all-pro. Like, had Hawkinson not gotten hurt last week, maybe he's the best tight end in the entire league. But Kittle right now is playing like the best tight end in the entire league.
He's been great.
It's Kittle Laporta right now. 2 Iowa guys.
Yeah.
It would have been 3.
Would have been. And Noah Fant, Seahawks, also, he's not
having an
very good.
okay year.
The Seahawks, by the way, are down by 10 with 4 minutes left.
What are we doing?
So it does not seem like the Seahawks are going to get a win, and that might potentially keep them out of the postseason. You never know.
The Saints make the playoffs?
It's going to come down to week 18.
The Saints?
What's wild is the Atlanta Falcons are still alive in the NFC South, despite the fact that they haven't won a game in what feels like a month. They still might win that division. They need to win, and then they need Tampa to lose next week, and they win the division, which is crazy. One more piece of history that the Niners made today. I was talking about yards from scrimmage over 1,000.
Yeah.
Christian McCaffrey has doubled that. He's now over 2,000 yards from scrimmage this season. He joins Eric Dickerson and Marshall Faulk as the only players to do so on multiple franchises in NFL history. And he's also the first 49er with over 2,000 scrimmage yards since Frank Gore in 2006.
Frank Gore. He's so tiny. But he's just like
But he's got his name in like every single record somewhere.
He's the third most rushing yards of all time.
Yeah.
This franchise leading rusher of all time. Did a couple torn ACLs along the way in Miami and just somehow got it done.
Machine.
It was like a 6th-round pick, a 5th-round pick, wasn't he? Like, he
better be a Hall of Famer when his time comes.
If he's not, hey, Goodell, you can catch these hands, brother.
I was just going to say, I'm going to throw hands.
I'm going to take your M&Ms and throw them on the ground during the draft. Like this is what you get.
Yeah, Frank Gore, a legend, and Christian McCaffrey has equaled him in terms of scrimmage yards. 2,000, more than 2,000 now for Christian McCaffrey this season. Did not have a touchdown today, so he's still, 2 touchdowns away from Jerry Rice's single-season
probably
record.
Probably not going to get it now because he's hurt, too.
I would imagine he's not because he probably won't even play next week. So Jerry Rice's record stands
Is that the
at
greatest
least for
trade
one more season.
In Niners history?
Oh, man, that's a difficult question. Probably.
It's probably the greatest trade in the Shanahan era, right?
No doubt.
Like,
D Ford is up there.
I mean, well, all right. Jordan Willis is up there. he got the blocked punt in the playoffs.
You're right.
Like, I just think about, like, impacting the team as a whole. Like, the Jimmy G trade for what it was, second-round pick, is going to be in that conversation, quarterback. I know it didn't end well here with him or whatever, but, like...
He turned the franchise around.
Right.
Yeah.
And then you have Chris McCaffrey, I think, is the next best one. Like, the way he's propelled the offense just forward so much. But maybe I'm just forgetting. I won't blame my young brain for doing so, but, like, I can't think of a trade maybe out, like... Yeah, it's Chris McCaffrey. Like, what other trade in Niners history has been this impactful, this fast, that they're going to have him under contract to what, 2025? Like, he's not going anywhere.
No.
Fred Dean gets mentioned, Steve Young. Okay, but, like, they got Steve Young for relatively cheap, if I'm...
That's a hell of a trade, though.
I mean,
future Hall of Fame quarterback won you a Super Bowl.
He was nothing when he came over. Like, he really wasn't that good.
That almost makes the trade better, though.
And maybe it does. It's why the conversation is that we're having it right now. Because, like, McCaffrey was already established. It was going to cost you more. Whereas Steve Young was like, this guy has potential. Sit behind Montana. Which, like, again, maybe that makes the trade even better of, like, you're bringing this guy in, and all of a sudden you're like...
Like, you identified something that nobody else knew.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
you
maybe
took advantage of it.
Fred Dean gets mentioned, which perfectly should be in that conversation as well. Like, it just feels like maybe if McCaffrey isn't the best one of all time, it's certainly in that conversation for one of the greatest trades in franchise history.
Yeah.
At least the most impactful the past couple seasons in NFL history.
I'm with you, and it allowed the offense to reach an entirely new level that they've consistently been at since he joined the team. All right, few minutes left here on Overtime on 95.7 The Game. It's Mark Grandy and Sterling Bennett with you. As always, we're going to wrap things up with game balls. It's New Year's Eve. It's the holiday season. I'm in the giving mood, Sterling, so I'll allow you to pick the first game ball recipient. Who you going with, Sterling?
You know what? I'll give it to Elijah Mitchell.
Okay,
my
I like
mortal
it.
enemy, Elijah Mitchell.
This is big of you.
We have beef.
Big time.
Stay healthy, brother. Because, look.
He looked good today.
He did. Look, Christian McCaffrey gets hurt, calf injury. Maybe he could have gone in. Shanahan said if there was a game, like a really important game next week, McCaffrey would certainly be doubtful, questionable all week. What he was able to do in relief of CMC, give him a break, not risk further injury, help put this game away, put it on ice, 17 carries, 80 yards, almost 5 yards a pop, and score one touchdown. He really was kind of this team's lifeline late in the game. When you're trying to put it away, trying to waste some clock, Elijah Mitchell was the go-to guy. He gets the first game ball.
Yeah, good pick. I really like that one. First touchdown of the season for Elijah Mitchell. Happy for him. He missed, the last 4 games, came back and had a really nice day today. I'll stick with the offense. I'm going to go Brandon Ayuk. He was a little bit invisible on Christmas. We both called him out for it. He had a good fourth quarter. But a lot of that wasn't quite garbage time, but it kind of was like garbage time. The Ravens kind of changed up their scheme there towards the end. But Ayuk bounced back in a huge way today. 7 catches for 114 yards and a touchdown. Had that 38-yard streak down the right sideline. It was a great throw by Purdy, but also a really nice catch by Ayuk with the defender draped all over him. Had the wherewithal to find the open space in the back of the end zone. I know Purdy was helping him out and pointing him open and telling him where to run, but he managed to escape from the defense and caught the pass in the end zone for a touchdown. 7 for 114 and a touchdown. Ayuk, with every performance like that, he's making himself an awful lot of money this offseason or next, whenever it does happen, if it's with the Niners or not. Certainly hope it is with the Niners. But Ayuk was really good again today. 7 for 114 and the touchdown. He gets a game ball from me.
I'll go back to Old Faithful. No, it's not Brock Purdy.
Uh-oh.
It's Charvarius Mooney Ward.
Another interception.
The Commanders are marching downfield. Your offense hasn't scored in a while. It just feels like, look, this game's in the balance. It's 10-20. If they score, it makes it a 3-point game. You have to stop them. Mooney Ward steps in front of the pass, gets picked off, gets his 5th interception this year, has the pass deflection, I believe, later in the game as well, maybe earlier, but either way, gets another pass deflection. I believe he still leads the NFL in those. this season. Mooney Ward has just been locked down as of recently. Like, he's just been the guy. Maybe outside of the Ravens game, which is that a one-game fluke for the defense? We'll obviously see. Certainly felt like a one-game fluke for Brock Purdy today. But I want to give it to Mooney Ward. He deserves credit. Didn't get the INT against the Vikings when they were in the losing streak on the zero blitz. He certainly picked that back up. I believe he has 3 picks in the last 3 games.
He does.
Including 1 pick six. So when you're getting takeaways, getting this high-powered offense the ball back, only good things can happen. Mooney Ward gets that second game ball.
Yeah, good pick. All right, last one for me. I guess I'll just go with the quarterback because he deserves a shout-out. 22
Sam
for 28. The other quarterback.
Sam Darnold?
Sam Darnold did get in, did not complete a pass. Sam Darnold, his stats today officially, 2 carries for -2 yards with a couple of kneel downs. But no, I'm going Brock Purdy here for the final game ball. 22 for 28, 230 and 2 touchdowns. Did not turn the ball over. A quarterback rating of 124.7. He bounced back from his worst performance of his professional career. He turned the ball over 4 times on Christmas night against a really good Ravens defense. Was very good today. It was a little bit more workmanlike. It wasn't as flashy. There wasn't a ton of really big plays for the Niners offense. But when Purdy needed a big throw here and there, he made it. He was really good today. He didn't necessarily carry the offense like he has in past games. But good to see him just absolutely under control, putting the ball where it was supposed to go nearly every single time. Very efficient, under control. He was good today. 22 for 28, 230 yards, 2 touchdowns, and again, took care of the ball, did not turn it over. Really the only way, Sterling, I thought the Commanders were going to have a chance in this game was if they forced a bunch of turnovers. So for Brock Purdy, the message was simple: take care of the ball and you're not losing, and the Niners did not lose. And to add on to that for San Francisco, the Eagles lost. The Cardinals upset them in Philadelphia. As a result, with the Niners win and the Eagles lost, the 49ers are now the number 1 seed in the NFC. And Sterling, when we're doing overtime next week after the game against the Rams, it's not really going to matter that much because the Niners win or lose with the 1 seed.
Don't say that. It'll matter. You want to know why?
Why?
Because Sam Darnold is going to take it to that Rams cheesed up, sliced up, about to get run through by the Red Rifle Jr.
I'm looking forward to it. That's coming up on Sunday, 1 o'clock, Niners and Rams.
Is it 1 o'clock? They haven't put a time together for it yet.
Oh, is it?
It's up in the air. It's in flux.
I guess they're trying to figure out like postseason implications, and
this game might mean something.
They'll stack the games that matter. Like the Niners need to win, but the Eagles need to win. Like if that was the case, they want those games being played at the same time.
That's what the NBA does.
Yeah. So I guess you're right. I jumped the gun.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Getting too ahead of yourself.
We don't even know if it's going to be 1 o'clock. I'm not even sure if we know it's going to be on Sunday yet. Do we know that?
Let's put it on Tuesday for all I care. Technically, doesn't matter to me.
I think there's a chance it could be a game on Saturday.
Game? Ooh.
I don't think so. I think Sunday is way more likely. But we'll figure it out.
Football.
Whenever it is, when the game ends, you know where to go. You come to 95.7 the game for overtime. It'll be myself and Sterling with that game as always. But until then, we'll talk to you next time. For Sterling Bennett, for Chris O'Connell, who got us all these pieces of sound post-game. Thanks so much. Shout out to Chris. Thanks to all of you for tuning in all afternoon long. The Niners victorious over the Commanders. They're the number 1 seed in the NFC. Go crazy, Niner fans. Go crazy. Thanks for tuning in. And my name is Mark Grandy. We'll talk to you next time here on 95.7 The Game.
Celebrate.